Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the regular council meeting for Monday, April the 18th. I'd like to call this meeting to order and first off recognize that we are on the traditional territory of the Nanaimo First Nations. Introduction of late items. Ms. Smith.
The number of late items this evening on your agenda, starting with item 7A, the Port Theatre Society Community Performing Arts Centre Project Council Direction. Add delegations Mr. Tim McGrath, Ms. Patricia Grand, and Mr. Kim Smythe. As well, you'll be adding correspondence from Mr. Leonard Krogh, MLA. Item 8E, Regional Parks and Trails Service Area Amendment Bylaw. Add attachments A, B, and C. Item 9A, Garner Crescent and Emery Way Utility Upgrades Tender. Add delegations Mr. Fred Taylor and Mrs. Rosemary Taylor. Item 10B, Regional Parks and Trails Parcel Tax Bylaw 7228. Add delegations from Ms. Denise Bryce and Mr. Tim McGrath. And I also understand there's a notice of motion that Councillors Bestwick and Hong may wish to bring forward.
Thank you. Councillor Bestwick.
Yes, I do wish to bring a notice of motion forward under whatever, notice of motion number 13. And as it relates, we'll just do it at the end. Is that enough detail?
Thank you.
I will be bringing forward a notice of motion in 13.
Item 13A.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any others, Council? Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you. I don't know if this should be an agenda item, or maybe if I may just take a quick second to give a plug. There's a local company called Production Web Series, and they're doing a video film on why we love Nanaimo. And it's an online voting process for all citizens. So I just want to quickly give them a plug called Production Web Series. Everyone get on storyhive.com and vote for Production Web Series. It's a positive competition that would showcase Nanaimo in a positive note. And so I just want to give them a plug tonight for the Production Web Series. Get online and vote for the wonderful project on storyhive.com. Thank you.
Storyhive? Storyhive. Yep. Storyhive.com.
You can vote up to 5 times. Thank you.
Vote early and vote often. Great, thank you. Motion for the adoption of the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Councillor Bestwick, seconded by Councillor Kipp. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the adoption of the minutes of the special open meeting of the Council of the City of Nanaimo held in the Douglas Rispin Room of March 21st.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Kipp, seconded by Councillor Bestwick. Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the motion of the regular meeting of Council for the City of Nanaimo held on March 21st. Move the minutes. Thank you, Councillor Kipp. Seconded by Councillor Pratt. Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. The next one, Ms. Naomi Beth Wakeham, Poet Laureate, to read a poem as part of the 2016 Mayor's City Poetry Challenge. Accompanying her are 3 winners of the high school poetry competition who will also read poems. For those who are not aware of this competition, it is actually the Mayor's Poetry Challenge by Mayor Nenshi from Calgary. Good evening.
Good evening, Your Worship and Councillors. This is my 3rd and last year as Poet Laureate of Nanaimo. I'm so honoured to have been able to represent the city in the area of poetry creation. I owe so much to Chris Barfoot of the Culture and Heritage Department, as well as Deborah Graham of Ladysmith High School, Kathleen Darby of the Nanaimo Conservatory of Music, and Beth and Greg Scala, fellow poets, for supporting me in the projects that I have initiated. It wouldn't be accurate to say I would have been lost for words without them. It would take a bit more than that. but they all certainly help my words flow. In January, I initiated a high school poetry competition to encourage poetry writing among our young people. Tonight, as part of the Mayor's Challenge, I'd like to introduce you to the top 3 prize winners of that competition, ask them to read their short poems, and then I'll finish up the challenge by offering some poetic advice for budding poets. So we'll start with the 3rd prize winner, Sophia Halfyard from Wellington High School.
Thank you. So my poems they're short, so that's good. They're both haikus, and one is inspired by Mount Benson. So if you're standing on top of Mount Benson and imagine what you would see. You'd see Nanaimo and how beautiful, and the trees, the ocean, birds. You get a lot out of Nanaimo. And my second poem is about Departure Bay, where I live and have grown up. So, because Vancouver is so close, and it's just a beautiful area. So, breath on Mount Benson. Treetops down steep hills. Aged coal sleeps below the coast. Birds fly to and from. So. Now my second poem, Departed Harbor, which is inspired by Departure Bay. Rough stones sit at bay, soft shore kisses, smooth bumps blank, cold touch, but warm feel. Thank you very much.
Second prize winner was Eli Buchert, also from Wellington High School. Eli.
Well, hi, my name is Eli Buchert, and this is my poem called Nanaimo. It's about growing up in Nanaimo. Rose from the mines and dwells on the sea. It's my picturesque recollection. It's where my memories reside. It's the start of my every relation, where I can feel the breathing tide. It's my bank of memory. It's my harbor of thoughts, a realistic dream, nothing more I've ever sought. The place I learned to live, it's my future and my past. The ship of life I sail, raise my flag up to the mast. Nanaimo is my home. It will never cease to be. The forests and the oceans, Nanaimo is the key.
I didn't mention, but the theme is Nanaimo. Okay, and the first prize winner went to Eden Rowe from Ladysmith High School.
Lines of the Nanaimo Harborfront. You're walking along the sun-drenched seawall, taking in the tranquil beauty. Vivid colors of leisure boats. Above the sky, a twin beaver soars away with grace and ease. Aromatic smells draw you back. Robust coffee, energy, flavorful ice cream, energetic. Sweet candy, excitement. Continuing along your peaceful walk, step by step, stride by stride, you suddenly find yourself upon a bridge, standing secure on the divide. To the left, a serene lagoon. To the right, a lively ocean. Ahead stands a vista of magnificent trees, protecting an enchanting castle fun. This is the place to be, to let go and be free. Thank you.
Old folks are very fond of giving advice, so why should I be different? So line up, please. I've got some poetic advice to give you. Advice to young poets. If you foolishly aim to make poetry your career path, be forewarned. You don't laze around in latte cafes with your jeans torn at the knee and a small notebook closed on the table in front of you. Such behavior won't pin your angst down. You don't need hanging out. You need hanging in. No, if you want to tell of thwarted love or the garbage state of mankind, you don't need lays, you need discontent. For it's discontent that produces something new and fresh, some words that will nudge you and the world around you into some semblance of balance. To do this, my young poets, first get a simple job, a job that will pay the rent, but little more, and one that will exercise your body, say gophering on a building site or cleaning houses. This will keep your little mind busy with the work in hand, so your true voice can find space and refuge in order to offer you the odd apt phrase, the odd clever metaphor, and words enough to tell of your lost loves and lost dreams, so you have room to tell of new loves and new dreams, and that all is not lost for mankind. Believe me, that's the way to go. Thank you.
Councillor Beswick.
Thank you. Just a comment. Ms. Walken, thank you so much for the 3 years of your participation and the inspiration that you've brought to these three and all of us and so many others that have been witness to some of your work. And I just want to say that another compliment, because oftentimes we're challenged with our youth and some of the movements. And I just want to say, whenever our youth come in front of us that are from whatever discipline and whatever dedication and whatever commitment, and I just want to say we're in good hands. And I need to thank you for making sure that they came in front of us and putting this on, and I hope it has legs and legacy and continues to happen every year. So thank you guys, just fantastic, and it's really it really does fill your heart. So thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, all four of you, for sharing your wisdom this evening. All of your poems are brilliant and beautiful. Sophia, I'm not very poetic, but I admire poetry. Was yours a haiku?
Yes, 2 haikus.
2 haikus, and what really stood out for myself is you start off with Mount Benson, and then your second was Departure Bay. Just quickly, not to belabor time, thank you for your time, is the Nanaimo have a creation story where before contact, there's a family living up on Mount Benson and a family living down Departure Bay, and our creation story is that's how we came about. So right away, the way your Departure Bay and your Mount Benson brought me right back to that. So I just wanted to share that from being part of Nanaimo as well, that it totally hit home, and that all were beautiful and brilliant. But thank you very much. I just want to touch that. If you weren't aware that that's how our creation story exists. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. I just want to add my thanks. This is lovely. Naomi, you've brought so many delightful moments into my life since I became a councillor, just by being our poet laureate and being in different situations with you over that time. I just want to thank you so much for the lovely presence that you bring and the words that you've shared with us over that time. They've always touched my heart, and I really, really do appreciate your presence as our poet laureate. Those will be very big shoes to follow in. And as for the young people here tonight, thank you so much for having the courage to get up and read your poems for us. They're beautiful. You're very talented, all three of you. And who knows, maybe we'll be reading some more of your poems in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Kett.
Well, thank you very much. And Mrs. Walken, it's been impressive every time you come through. The booklet you've produced has been phenomenal. So let's take Story Hive, make a video, kids read their poetry, and promote Nanaimo. Just add to it, especially with Story Hive. And you kids could read it. We could do the pictures in the background. I think that would be a great, just continue. So thank you very much.
So, for the young folks, you got the little lecture from Naomi about sitting around drinking lattes and in your torn jeans and whatnot. I've seen her on Gabriel Island at the coffee shop in her torn jeans drinking a latte. Love her to death. Thank you very much. So, the next item, the Nanaimo Youth Advisory Council.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. My name is Akash Pawar, and I'm the current chair of the Nanaimo Youth Advisory Council. Before I continue, I would like to congratulate our 3 recipients of the award. And I'm here to talk about the Nanaimo Youth Poet Initiative. Poetry has the power to affect all generations, as we just saw, and varies in its required effect, ranging from social awareness, rallying change, and providing a perspective when it seems like there is none. Recently, the Nanaimo Youth Advisory Council has partnered up and started cultivating a relationship with the Culture and Heritage Department. And one of the aspects of our relationship is the Nanaimo Youth Poet Laureate Program. Here's my colleague, and she's going to tell you more about it.
All right. Thank you, Cash. Good evening. My name is Sarah Lumley. I'm also a youth counselor on the Nanaimo Youth Advisory Council. So just to talk a little bit about the Youth Poet Laureate. The purpose of a Youth Poet Laureate is to serve as a youth voice, raise awareness through poetry and literary arts, and demonstrate the positive impact that literature and poetry can have on community life. The Youth Poet Laureate will pave the way for hundreds of youth to engage on a civic level through their artistic voice. For us, as the Nanaimo Youth Advisory Council, this is the next step in expanding the role and impact of youth in the city of Nanaimo. We look forward to working with the Culture and Heritage Department to develop some of the roles and responsibilities of Nanaimo's first ever Youth Poet Laureate. Thank you.
Thank you. Question, Councillor Hone.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thanks, guys, for coming up. I think I added them to this agenda because I thought it was something that would be great for them. Just wanted to expand on the Youth Poet Laureate. According to Jeremy Loveday from Victoria Council, if we were to have a youth poet in Nanaimo, this would be the only 3rd city in all of Canada to have a youth laureate. So I'm very excited, and I think I will be making a notice of motion with regards to, I think the Heritage and Culture Commission already started it, but I think we'll have a formal motion from us to get one started when notice motion comes up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that Councillor Hong has been acting like a very proud parent when it comes to his youth council, youth advisory council. And we were at a conference here in Nanaimo, the AVICC, a couple of weekends ago, and they showed up and did some wonderful things, added a lot to that whole weekend. And they had a bathtub there, and you got to sit in it and ask questions and have a chat with them. And I just thought it was a wonderful, wonderful addition to that weekend. And now you've come up with this wonderful idea. And I just am so pleased to hear from you again tonight. So thanks for coming.
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm really happy to see where this youth council is going, because it's a youth advisory council. So that's kind of when it started. That's what I was really hoping to see is some younger minds looking at issues that we all face and saying to us, this is where we want to go. This is where we think youth can take us. And these are the kinds of things you can do that are going to serve youth better and make our city better. So this is great. The Poet Laureate is just a stroke of genius. Our adult Poet Laureate has brought so much to us, and I'm looking forward to you doing the same. And the work you did at the AVICC with sitting and talking to people in the tub. It was really a brilliant and fun way to start to engage youth with adult leaders. So thanks for doing it. I know you don't get paid for doing this, so it's just a pleasure to know you guys and to see you start to come up with some great ideas for us to look at as a community, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. So I just wanted to say, with respect to the AVICC conference, we've had nothing but accolades from our colleagues all around Vancouver Island with respect to that conference. And the central location, the beautiful weather, the things that people learned about Nanaimo they didn't know anything about. And your participation in that event really added an extra element to it that added some electricity, added some excitement to it. But there was only one thing that bothered me about your participation in that whole event, and that was when they were giving away free hugs. I ended up with this big hairy guy, and he was the only guy that would hug me. It was great, and I really wanted to commend you on the fact that you're getting out. And you're not just going to meetings and nothing come of it. You're out in the community. You're identifying yourselves as the Youth Advisory Council, and that means a lot to the younger people with respect to their participation in their municipal governments. That's what the intention of the whole Youth Advisory Council was. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh. Once again.
You did it again.
Did it again. Councillor Fuller.
Yeah.
They may have a question for you, or he may just want
No, you guys go and sit down. Go and sit down. You deserve it. What a lot of people don't know is that the Youth Advisory Council not only come up with great ideas about like youth poet laureates, bathtubs where you sit and ask questions at conferences. They also, once a month, do a breakfast for the needy in the community, which involves getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning, coming down to the 710 Club and preparing the breakfast and serving it, sometimes to upwards of 200 plus people a day. So they are really getting to know all about the community and all levels of the community. And I totally expect them to be this group of non-judgmental adults that contribute greatly to the betterment of Nanaimo in the future. And I'm sure we won't have heard the last of them, even when they're done with the Youth Council. These are young kids that are going places.
Thank you. So, motion to receive the delegation. Councillor Hong, seconded by Councillor Yoakum. Thank you. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is Mr. Chris Barfoot, Culture and Heritage Coordinator, to provide a presentation regarding all things poetry related.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This evening I'll be presenting everything poetry. Why poetry? Why now? Well, April is National Poetry Month, and the City of Nanaimo and our famous inaugural Nanaimo Poet Laureate have been very busy celebrating and bringing poetry to places and to levels we have never seen before here in Nanaimo. First of all, working with the wonderful staff at the Parks, Recreation and Environment Department and advertised through the Harbour City Seniors membership, Naomi Beth Walken, Nanaimo's Poet Laureate, ran a memoir and poetry workshop back in September of 2015 that was full to capacity with a wait list. We are working towards offering another one of these workshops in 2016. In late 2015, Naomi mentioned the idea about inviting young poets from around Nanaimo to participate in a poetry competition. She began communicating and planning with many of the librarians working in School District 68, as well as the homeschool program. A call was initiated in February, and since the very beginning, we received many submissions from the majority of high schools within the district. There were so many strong poems submitted, including the talented winners that we read for you this evening. I would like to thank the librarians who helped make this project possible and such an enormous success, starting with Deborah Graham, Lori Cyber, and excuse me if I'm mispronouncing names, Angela Milligan, Elizabeth Sonacy-Jones, Colleen Vasshans, Matthew Leddington, and Robin Geisler. The project not only showcased and helped celebrate poetry, but it captured the wonderful support Nanaimo has for the arts, and it shows how the arts have the ability to build and foster healthy relationships and partnerships within our community. The Mayor's Poetry Challenge, which we witnessed tonight, is a national celebration of UNESCO's World Poetry Day, which was on March 21st, the National Poetry Month in April. To correct my slide, the challenge actually began in 2012 and is now an annual initiative through which municipal councils across Canada open their council meetings with a reading from a local poet, or in Nanaimo's case, 3 wonderful high school poets. The aim for the local communities is to celebrate poetry, writing, small presses, and the contribution of poets and all writers to the rich cultural life in our country, and especially in this case, Nanaimo. The challenge was first offered by Regina's Mayor, Pat Fiacco, and continued by Michael Fouguard. This year, Calgary has taken over as the host city, with Mayor Naheed Nenshi offering the challenge to his fellow Canadian mayors. This year's initiative was a collaboration between the League of Canadian Poets, the City of Calgary, the Writers Guild of Alberta, and Loft 112. In 2015, over 71 English and Francophone communities participated in the Mayor's Challenge, and we are one of those numbers, and we have grown. Another initiative, again, inspired by Naomi. As you can tell, there's a common theme with this presentation, and it's inspiring. The Poetry in Transit was inspired by Naomi in a way to reach a greater audience and at the same time engage and inspire everyday people through poetry. This was made possible through a partnership between the City of Nanaimo, the Regional District of Nanaimo, and the Vancouver Island Regional Library. From the moment the idea came, next was implementation, which included approaching the Regional District of Nanaimo, because what's a Poetry in Transit program if we don't have access to transit? Daniel Pierce, who was at the time the manager of transit operations, and Brandon Miller, the superintendent of transit service delivery, were instrumental in making this project happen. It was from their keen and positive attitude in this newly formed partnership that built the momentum to complete this great project. What I thought would maybe be a poem or two spread out over a couple buses quickly became 3 poems, not on one bus, but every single bus within the Regional District of Nanaimo. This is over 49 buses in total, allowing this program to reach hundreds of riders every day. Not only did the RDN show support for putting the poetry on the buses, but if you were downtown on Saturday, April the 9th, you would have seen that they even parked a city bus within Diana Krall Plaza. That's a first. The Vancouver Island Regional Library, through communication with Jennifer Sieper, the customer service librarian at the Nanaimo Harbourfront branch, came on board instantly. The VIRL hosted the main launch of the program and also generously covered the cost for the first round of printing to go up on the buses. This project is another great example of the power of the literary arts and poetry to bring people, and in this case, organizations, together to achieve a common goal that helps create that cultural vibrancy that Nanaimo is known for. Another initiative that we've been working on and has been launched was in 2015, the City of Nanaimo launched the Nanaimo Poetry Map. The map was developed with assistance from our IT department, and a call for poetry was initiated. This call for poetry remains an open call with submissions received on a daily basis. The Nanaimo Poetry Map is a way to rethink and re-know our city. A map, generally speaking, imposes a system of knowledge upon a place as it shows the official names of streets and buildings and basically assists the reader in finding a particular location. The Nanaimo Poetry Map is different. The map is intended to encourage the reader to explore the city through poetry, to understand the experiences within it differently because of the poems. Poets contribute works that are in some way related to a particular point on the map or site in Nanaimo. The poems are not intended to be descriptions of that place. Rather, they are impressions of that place. I encourage you all tonight to go home and check the Nanaimo's poetry map. I've quickly learned that poetry has this magical ability to help readers find a deeper connection to a place within their community. As you can see from this slide, again, Naomi Beth Walken, Nanaimo's inaugural Poet Laureate, is only picking up steam as she is now in her third of her final term. Naomi has been such an inspiration to work with on all levels and on all these great poetry initiatives. I think it's safe to say that she has set the bar for the future Poet Laureates of Nanaimo, and it's quite a ways up there. Naomi has had over 30 appearances in the city of Nanaimo in 2015 as Nanaimo's Poet Laureate, and those do not include all of the events and activities that she attended outside the city. What's next? With this being the third and final term of Naomi, we will be announcing a call for poets in the very near future and looking for Nanaimo's next Poet Laureate. Also, new for 2016, as you've heard tonight, we'll be presenting to Council in the near future the introduction of an inaugural Youth Poet Laureate for Nanaimo. The goal of this program for the Youth Poet Laureate is to work with the Nanaimo Youth Advisory Council, as mentioned, and to give the youth in Nanaimo another voice out in the community. The Youth Poet Laureate will pave the way for hundreds of youth to engage on a civic level through their artistic voice. We are excited to have Naomi attend and read at so many exciting and great activities and events planned this summer and early fall. These events are listed on the previous slide, but they do include the VIX, the Dragon Boat Festival, Canada Day, and the RAIC Conference, just to name a few. With the success of the workshop through the Nanaimo Parks and Recreation and Environment Department, we have also been in communications now with the Vancouver Island Regional Library about partnering for a haiku workshop planned in the fall. And unfortunately, as we move towards the end of the term, we'll need to make ways for the next Poet Laureate's journey. I would like to thank you again for having me attend this evening to share with you everything poetry. It's very exciting that after becoming a cultural capital in 2008 and in 2014, Council adopting the cultural plan for a creative Nanaimo, there is such strong support in the community that I have the opportunity to present on poetry in Nanaimo and everything poetry. And it is further evidence of the cultural vibrancy Nanaimo has become to be known for. Thank you very much.
Councillor Pratt.
Thank you, Chris. I would just like to say, as a member of the Culture and Heritage Commission, both myself and Councillor Brennan had the pleasure the other night of attending and presenting awards at the Cultural and Heritage Awards evening, and that was a real pleasure, not only to recognize people in our community for the work that they have done in the area of culture and heritage, but also to see so many of the youth in our community who were performing that night. It was really, really quite wonderful to see, and I would highly recommend it as something to do next year if you happen to see any notices of that around the city. It's a lovely evening. Naomi was also present at that as well, and read, started the evening with a poem. And as part of the AVIC conference that we were talking about, both Councillor Thorpe, who's not here tonight, and myself slipped out during the conference to attend the launch of the Poetry in Transit program. And again, Naomi was there along with some other poets from the community, and whose poems were going to be put up in the transit buses. And I just couldn't help but think what an amazing program that was. It's such a simple thing. It isn't a big thing, and yet it is, in a way, because it just brings something really lovely to to our community and to something as simple as riding a bus. And I don't ride the buses, but I am going to take. I told Naomi that day, I am going to take a bus and have a look at the poems. And if I miss my stop, as one of the poems suggested, so be it. I'll just go around and come back. Again, I just want to say this whole poetry initiative that really has been inspired by Naomi has added such a lovely component to our community. And I, again, really commend Naomi for that and for everybody else who's worked with her to make that happen. So thank you.
Well, if she's coming to an end of her term after 3 years, maybe we should consider going to a 4-year term. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please join me in congratulating and recognizing Miss Naomi Wakeham. Thank you very much. The next item, item 7, under administration, the Port Theatre Society Community Performing Arts Centre Project Council Direction. The purpose is to provide an updated motion that continues to support the Port Theatre Society's fundraising efforts in the completion of its Community Performing Arts Centre while providing increased assurances to the city. We have 5 delegations, and the first one, now because there are 5, you will have 5 minutes. And the first one is Mr. Bruce Halliday. And council will receive the delegations at the end of the 5.
Good evening. How are you tonight? Good way to start the evening. All this positive cultural stuff in Nanaimo. It's wonderful. Thank you for allowing the opportunity to make delegation to council tonight. I'd like to thank you on behalf of our Port Theatre Board of Directors and Fred Jacklin, our chairman, who was unable to make it here this evening to be here personal. So I'm taking his place as the representative of the society. Our purpose of the presentation is reconfirmation of support for this long-awaited community priority. We are proud to operate the Port Theatre on your behalf. We have the city's best interest at heart and believe that our ongoing and successful relationship with the City of Nanaimo has earned us the trust of our city and its council. And now I'd like to introduce Bruce Halliday, our respected and professional Port Theatre manager.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you. And first, I'd like to apologize for not having this ready in haiku format. Mayor and Council, thank you for this opportunity. To begin, I'd like to share a few critical facts about our history and this project. Leading up to 1997, the Port Theatre Society raised almost $13 million, over $4 million of which we raised locally, and over $8 million of federal money was brought into our community to build this important piece of city infrastructure. We operate this facility on the behalf of the City of Nanaimo through a management agreement. Our operations have never had any accumulated debt, and I need you to know that some of the infrastructure for this proposed addition is already in place. Electrical, some pylons in place, and architectural access points. This project represents the completion of our Performing Arts Centre. The centerpiece will be a 220-seat performing space that can be configured in unique ways to suit many clients' needs. It will have 2 rehearsal spaces to support professional and community groups alike, one of which will have capacity even to be used as a small film or green screen studio. We will also add washrooms and many other facilities. This facility will be the only one of its kind on Vancouver Island and will create huge opportunities to make Nanaimo a true cultural destination. In the spring of 2014, we consulted the community, confirming the need for this facility. The city's own 10-year cultural plan also identified this project as a top priority. This led to council's support of the project on September 8th, 2014. Since that decision, we have been moving forward in the spirit of partnership and collaboration with the City of Nanaimo. To date, we have raised and spent over $650,000 to reach over 90% design completion of the facility, including geotechnical work, structural, electrical, and architectural design work. Each step has been undertaken only when funds are available. There is no debt owing and no use of our line of credit to date. Many donors have contributed to our fundraising. As pictured here, one of Nanaimo's best-known citizens, Betty St. Jean, has personally contributed $100,000. Betty and her family, I know Gerard's here, and many other citizens of Nanaimo have seen the value of this project and have shown their support in personal donations. Thank you. This slide shows the original motion that was passed on September 8th, 2014. The purpose of this presentation tonight is to confirm an updated motion to support our fundraising efforts while providing some increased assurances to the city. On March 7th, 2016, in an attempt to reconfirm support and clarify terms, Council passed a motion in camera that, within the motion, obligated the city to repay 100% of the contribution. Please see item 4. Mayor and Council, please allow me to ask that if you take one thing away from this presentation tonight, let it be this. The wording of this new motion would disqualify us from applying for any and all federal funds. The federal government expects municipal contribution. Any mention of this being a repayable loan would exclude us entirely. Also, all applications for funding must be in the form of a joint submission. The Port Theatre and the City of Nanaimo must be partners in these applications in order to even be considered. We are here tonight to ask that we be given the chance to complete this city-owned project and bring millions of dollars into Nanaimo. And now the current staff recommendation that is before you has the very best chance of success in attracting these infrastructure dollars. Recent announcements around federal funding for shovel-ready cultural spaces position us for success. We ask that you let us create millions of dollars of construction jobs, create ongoing jobs in the creative sector, work with you to build more city infrastructure, and to continue to energize downtown core. Our track record is almost unparalleled. Very few organizations in Nanaimo, if any, have raised millions of dollars, designed and built city-owned facilities. We are aware and sensitive to Council's desire for assurances. As with any city-owned facility, all project management, timing, and permitting will be within the purview of the City of Nanaimo. Mayor and Council have the opportunity tonight to make a positive statement to our community, a positive statement to the region and the country, that we recognize the arts and culture sector as an economic driver and indeed a contributor to our quality of life. Let us make a positive statement that this city is open for business. The community stands in support of this project.
Thank you, sir. Don't go away. Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you. Can we please go to the slide with the motion, please? The recent motion. Bruce, was that made in conjunction with yourself and staff? Or you guys collaborated together on that to come up with this language?
Collaboration on this, yes.
That language would work for not disqualify?
Correct.
Thank you. Question answered.
Thank you. See no further questions. Thank you, sir. The next delegation is Mr. Dave Whitty.
Thank you, Your Honor. I urge Council to adopt and pass that motion that was before you. I'm representing Inspire Nanaimo tonight. The Community Performing Arts Centre project is a very important piece in Nanaimo's place as an acknowledged cultural capital of Canada. Why would I say that? Culture is one of the 5 pillars of Nanaimo's successful city's vision. It is a critical pillar, one that speaks to a core strength in Nanaimo. This is 2016. Much has happened to city building over the past 10 years. A clear trend, one that is occurring before our eyes in Nanaimo and across Canada, is simply this. Book by Richard Florida, Who's Your City? Let me read from the cover. How the creative economy is making where to live the most important decision of your life. Let there be no mistake, Council. Nanaimo has a chance to be a destination city, but not just for retirees. No. More importantly, it can be a destination for the emerging innovative worker, for the creative class, for the next webmaster. But those new 21st century workers are highly mobile. We know that they choose quality of life as a driver for location decisions. And we also know this, a key driver for them relates to a vibrant arts scene. Yes, a vibrant arts scene will be essential for any city that wants to build the new economy. Make no mistake, that is the case, Council. Investing in the new Arts Centre project will be a foundational, complementary addition to our existing cultural strength. It will be a wise economic development decision as well. As Ms. Margaret Strongenharm was honored on the Wednesday night at the 2016 Culture and Heritage Awards, so you will be honored in future years if you support this worthy and economically important investment in our future. I put that before you. I urge you to adopt this motion. This project is visionary. You need to be as well. Please support Nanaimo's future by supporting this worthy project. Thank you.
And I just wanted to add, I'm Debbie Truman, General Manager of the Nanaimo Museum, that I'm here tonight in support of the project, and I hope it gets the opportunity to move forward because an investment in one of our partners strengthens all of us. So I hope you'll support it.
Thank you.
Julie Bevan, Executive Director of Nanaimo Art Gallery. The Art Gallery provided a letter of support in regard to this project in 2014, and many of our staff and board are here again tonight to reconfirm our enthusiasm. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Dino Tsembalis, and on behalf of the Vancouver Island Symphony, the Board of Directors, the staff, and the musicians, we do support this project.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Councillors. Eliza Gardiner, 375 Black Diamond Drive, Nanaimo, British Columbia. I'm here today in support of the Port Theatre Society's Community Performing Arts Centre, mostly representing this evening Theatre One, where I'm General Manager. But my boss at VIU is kind of here tonight too. It's a real honor to share the podium this evening with Dr. Dave Whitty, who's a champion of the arts, especially on campus. And this city has the same opportunity as Vancouver Island University has in showing leadership to the creative sector, not just in the city but across the province. Theatre One uses the Port Theatre as well as VIU's Malaspina Theatre, which is doing also an upgrade, a renovation, and the university is supporting fundraising initiatives in order that that key venue succeed on campus as a cultural hub. And so, similarly, the city is positioned to support the downtown Port Theatre venue as that cultural hub. And so I really would like to see the current resolution supported by this council so that not only our creative sector is better positioned, but so that Nanaimo can celebrate its pride of place as a tourist destination and a great place to live. Thank you.
Evening.
I'm sorry, sir, they used up all your time. Go ahead.
Thanks. My name is Bob Brooks. I'm a administrator, teacher, and arts educator in the district. And I've worked with the Port Theatre for the last 8-10 years. And I know that the opportunities that they provided for my students working within learning alternatives with our most vulnerable youth have been absolutely transformative to our students. We've been on the stage at the Port Theatre 3 times with our students through a project called Windows of Opportunity over the years. And I can't say how that's had, how much that has an impact on the students that I've worked with. I'm fortunate enough to be an administrator now working at NDSS, and I know that our current group of students working in our building, which includes students, have been given another opportunity recently by the Port Theatre to be able to utilize their space and to be able to recognize their expertise in supporting our students is just unbelievable. I can't say enough about saying how I think we need to support this movement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see no questions for the delegation. The next delegation is Mr. Tim McGrath.
Good evening, Council. My name's Tim McGrath, 431 3rd Street. Before we start, I want to tell Council that I like the Port Theatre. I attended as recently as 2 weeks ago to watch Rick Mercer and saw both Mr. Jackson and Ms. Zamborski there. I too am an artist, but the city doesn't subsidize me or my customers. I probably attend 4 to 5 performances a year. It's important for all of Council to know that this matter has never been presented to the public for discussion until today. Originally, the Port Theatre appeared with a report, simply a report to Council to advise they wanted an expansion. Without notice, Fred Patchy brought forth a motion without giving an opportunity to the public to respond. That motion was jammed through with Ms. Brennan seconding the expense, again without input from the public. There was no notice of motion. It came flying out of the left corner. This is the first and only time public has ever been given an opportunity to respond. I look at the 2013 annual report from the Port Theatre, and I'm looking at the 2013 report because the 2014 simply doesn't divulge a lot of numbers, and I don't think that the numbers have changed significantly. The Port Theatre opened in 1998, as we've heard, 18 years ago. They claim to have done well. They have grown without the wanted practice space. The city has since purchased and financed, in part, a small theatre space down Old Victoria Road. This project is more of a want than a demonstrated need. The city is also home to the Bailey Theatre. The Port Theatre sold 68,000 tickets out of 249 performances. That only averages 273 tickets sold when the theatre holds 800 people. 34%. We know that we had a few sold-out performances, so in reality, the average attendance is usually even lower. This is a bad business model. Expanding a bad business model may produce another white elephant for the city to finance. When I started asking questions of the Port Theatre and their market research, I became very disappointed. Ask any business student about market research, and they will tell you the importance of knowing the existing customer base demographics, knowing your potential customers, if you want to attract new clients, what those people need and where they live and what they're willing to spend. You need market research. When I started asking this, I got as my response to questions, nothing. I got a response from the city council or from city staff saying, we don't do that because it's illegal. Well, we know from research, take the Vital Signs report by the Nanaimo Foundation, that some of the very important facts about our citizens of Nanaimo. It's not illegal getting facts and figures. 67% of the families are married couples. The median age in Nanaimo is 45.2. The number of children and youth, 0 to 19, is expected to increase by 27%. We know that the Nanaimo's median charitable donation is only $300, same as Kamloops, well below the provincial average of $400. We know that violent youth will increase 6%. We know that the number of residents in low-income housing based on the LIM after tax in the Nanaimo area is increased between 2012 and 2013. We know that the Nanaimoites that were employed, 38% were not earning a living wage of $20,000 before tax. We know that Nanaimo has a 5% unemployment rate, 5.8%. In total, 43% are not earning a livable wage. There's talk about a core review. I think what we should do is wait. Wait until the core review. Rescind any commitment to the Port Theatre at this point. We have the facilities now. We have the practice space. They've done very well without it. We have the small theatre space. Well, the city has already financed that. We know any increases in taxes mean higher rents. The landlords are not likely to pay higher taxes without getting higher rents. Historically, we know that the people should not be spending more than 30% before tax dollars on housing. But over 52% of Nanaimo has to spend more. This is worse than Kamloops, Kelowna, and Prince George. Now look at the Port Theatre's research. Nothing. Since the Port Theatre can tell us that they've taken the liberty on experience, the average theatre supporter attends 4 to 5 performances a year. 3/4 of them are couples. Let's do the math. 68,000 tickets sold by 4 performances per year is 17,000. If 3/4 of them are couples, that equals 6,375 couples and 4,250 singles for a total of 10,000 householders. 4.5 donation plus a $2 million overdraft, $6.5 million in liability divided by 10,000 people. I don't think you're doing the total city any good by giving the money to these 10,000. Some food for thought. If the theater charged $10,000
I need you to wrap up, sir.
For every bum in the seat, their preferred method of measure, it would generate $1 million a year. The Port Theatre opened in 1998. After 18 years, if they needed the $4.5 million over 18 years, that would come out to $2.34 is all they would have had to charge. Instead, they're coming to City Council because it's easier than it is to raise the money on their own.
Thank you, sir. I see no questions. Next one is Ms. Patricia Grand, Vice President, Port Theatre Society. No, okay, thank you. And the final is Mr. Kim Smythe.
Thank you very much, Council. I think before I get into my address, I've prepared something that's much shorter than my 5 minutes, but I have to tell my own Naomi Beth Wecken story as well. It was my esteemed pleasure, along with Julie Bevan, to be charged under the Cultural Advisory Committee to go out and find Nanaimo's Poet Laureate. And we searched long and hard for about a year until somebody said, yeah, you never heard of Naomi? So we reached out, we arranged to meet with Naomi, and she said I'd be very interested in this role, and we had a meeting with her at the Centre for the Arts Nanaimo. We talked about the role, the responsibilities, and we got to the point where we explained that there would be a small honorarium offered of $1,000 a year for the 3 years. And she looked, and then she thought, and then she looked back, and she said, 3 years. So you are arranging payment in advance. I'm sure that Chris and Suzanne did look after that because Naomi's here. So thank you for opening this discussion up to the community. I'm here to speak on behalf of continuing financial support by way of recommitting or certainly clarifying the commitment of Council to support further fundraising by the Port Theatre Society. To do this, we hope Council will accept the recommendations contained in the staff report, which Bruce pointed out this evening, specifically option 1 on page 20. I find the staff report makes the fiduciary responsibilities of the Port Theatre Society crystal clear. Wording of the new motion ensures the Society can pursue federal and provincial funding with a much greater chance of success and without exposing taxpayers to unknown risk. The timing of this is critical. The Society knows that the window for the work that needs to be done is open right now, but will soon be closing. There's no time left for continuing debate or study. I believe it is the intent of almost every councillor here to support the Port Theatre Society to build the expanded Community Performing Arts Centre and to do it with the greatest amount of senior government participation possible. That's why time is of the essence. The Greater Nanaimo Chamber of Commerce has supported Nanaimo arts and culture sector strongly in the past. We were at this podium to promote adoption of the unanimously approved cultural strategy in 2014, and we've spoken here in support of the Nanaimo Art Gallery's phased expansion plans. The Chamber makes these support statements because, in 2013, we worked with the NADC to examine the economic impact of the local creative economy and found that total direct gross output attributed to the arts and culture sector in Nanaimo was estimated at $94 million through a study conducted by Rosalie Coonan and Associates. The Port Theatre Society, in our estimation, has made a good business case for expansion at this time. I think most here support that. So I and the Chamber encourage your positive vote on the motion contained in the staff recommendations tonight. I know these are difficult decisions. They're complex. They represent a lot of money, taxpayers' money that you are managing on our behalf. And I know that there's been difficulties in dealing with tough decisions. But before I step away, I'd like to comment on the fact that I didn't think I'd be back at this podium until the fall, when the Chamber had promised to again comment on Council's term on the occasion of their second anniversary. So I'd like to do a very brief midterm. I'm compelled to speak now since I've got the mic for another minute. And challenging as it has and will continue to be, Council has definitely demonstrated it does have the ability to roll up its sleeves and work together to get work done. It was exciting to see our first hint of the core review and the consultant's preliminary report last week and find out we're actually in very good shape. It was even more exciting to get our 5-year financial plan behind us, including a 0% property tax increase for 2017. Introduction of the portfolio system by your new CAO demonstrates that there is a change in culture, a new direction, and new strategies coming to play in the management of the corporation, which bodes very well for our future. I know some, if not all, wish things could be a little different. Perhaps every one of us could find a little room for improvement, but I commend this council for working hard to find strategies to govern. While there are still hiccups and issues, you are moving forward. As long as council is producing results that reflect informed decision-making, effectively and fairly governing and beginning to build a better image of Nanaimo to everyone who's looking in, the Chamber of Commerce stands by with encouragement. I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can we have a motion to receive the delegations, please? Councillor Pratt, seconded by Councillor Kipp. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Now, we also have a piece of correspondence. Can we have, for Mr. Leonard Crow, can we have a motion to receive the correspondence? Councillor Brennan and Councillor Yoakum, thank you. Any discussion, business arising from the correspondence? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. So we have a staff recommendation on page 19, and it's 3 parts to it. Can we have, we'll do them seriatim, I would suggest, unless council wishes otherwise. So on the first one, can we move the part 1? So Councillor Pratt, and seconded by Councillor Bestwick. Thank you. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. I was just going to make the motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. Just a clarification on confirming, do we do something with number 1? Do we get rid of it or something? Or why do we have to reconfirm it? Just a clarification on why we need to do that.
You don't need to confirm it. It remains on the books. It's just part of the joint drafting was a recognition that council had made that commitment in the past.
Thank you. Follow up on that one then. With regards to that motion, do we still have it? I think Bruce had the original motion. I don't know if that was the same one that we have in our package or not. I was under the understanding, and I think I'm probably on record asking this question to the previous CEO and the finance and whoever else here. I'm sorry, Victor and Tracy, you weren't here when I asked the question. On the $4.6 million that the city had, I originally recall asking where that money was going to come from. We were going to apply for the grants, and if we got the grants, that was to pay what the city owed. Is that my original understanding of the original motion? I need somebody to clarify on what that was, because as far as I was concerned, it was something completely different. So these two motions, I'm confused.
I'm going to invite Mr. Halliday up to respond. A bit of a disadvantage as neither I nor Victor were here, and Suzanne is now gone.
So, the intention of the original motion was for the city to apply for Build Canada Fund, and we would fundraise. The implication, the direction we went with it, if we were all fortunate enough to raise more than was required, some of that money would go back, or all of the 4.6 could repay. But it wasn't in the motion. There wasn't any mention in the original motion of any money that directly paid back, because we would have been in the same position back then where we couldn't have applied for federal funds. And in fact, the city couldn't have applied if it was based on a loan. So that was the intent. And in the original motion, there was certainly no mention of a direct repayment.
Clarification still then. So why do we need to do any of this? If the original motion stands, because I'm just really confused on why we need to change what the original motion is. I think we passed it, and I think all council agreed you guys can go do your thing.
Can I help to answer that? Okay. If I could just recap, and I've been through this a lot trying to describe it. In September 8th, 2014, an original motion was passed. It was
which is up on the screen.
And there it is. Yes, thank you. And that was acceptable to everybody at the time. And we went on our fundraising efforts. As we all know, we had a major naming sponsor that didn't work out. We then followed through and kind of regrouped and took our time. We found a private business partner, which you'll remember, but in, I believe, February or March, we came to you in camera and pitched a possible P3. At that time, after our presentation to you, council passed a motion, the second motion, which obligates us to repay. So, and that's the one we're stuck with. That's the one, so.
I'll just sort of supplement those comments. The reason why you started to look at a different motion was because an opportunity for funding came forward. And during those deliberations, which I'm not going to disclose because they were in camera, different issues were raised, and we spent a fair amount of time coming up with that second motion. And that's how you changed the original one. You didn't need to change it. It remained on the books. But after the potential for funding came forward, council had other issues that they wanted addressed. And so those were discussed, and that motion was done that night. And the reason why we're here this evening is because we worked on that in camera, and some of the drafting language proved problematic. Even though the intent was to support the applications, and in the best case scenario, a lot of fundraising took place, and the Port Theatre was in a position to reimburse the city that potential could happen. That's how we went from motion 1 to 3.
Okay, thank you. Just to follow up, so now I understand, because I think this is where I want to get to. Thank you for clarifying that. Original motion, Bruce, back. Thanks.
I thought you were thanking me.
No,
I was
no,
done.
no, I got it clear. So originally what was supposed to happen was you guys were going to get a naming grant, big funding from that, and then we were going to apply for grants, and then we were going to figure out how much that worked out to. And if we got our money back, we got some of our money back, whatever, Build Canada. But the key from your funding in 2014 was the naming grant. That's where you had hoped the majority of the money was going to come from. That didn't happen as you came and presented to us, which I understood, and then we did the 3P. So my question now is, I'm still interested in naming our buildings. Now, do we get that money now? When we rename the Port Theatre, like with all the other ones, and we have this naming sponsorship, because I knew that you guys were going to take the name and take the money. So my question to council is, when we do have this policy which has been presented to us about naming rights, who gets that money?
You haven't determined that yet, but I think it's part of your fundraising.
It was, naming rights were always, from the time the Port Theatre was built, because that was a naming sponsorship, and was part of the fundraising plan at the time in 2014, remains a critical piece of our fundraising plans. So naming rights are still on the table. It's right now we have other opportunities with federal funding. But naming rights are always were and always will be part of our fundraising campaign.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you. Bruce, couple questions. But before we get to that, Jerry, for $1 million, we can put the Queens up there. Just kidding.
The fire got that close?
So in all seriousness, Bruce, first of all, I'd like to thank also the other week, 2 weeks ago, I heard someone mention 2 weeks ago, whoever brought the Truth and Reconciliation Ballet to the city was magical. A really moving, great event, and I was really proud of that. So thank you guys.
We're very proud of it.
Thank you. And that again put an eye on a positive light, because that tour is very selective, as you know. I don't tell you that where they were going to stop. So that was really kudos whoever arranged that, you and your staff. But the question I would have in regards to this project, I'm assuming that if this motion goes away, everyone's hoping the operational dollars are taken care of and part of their fundraising campaign, and wouldn't be coming to the table for, like, you're operationally equipped to do your additional 220-seat theater.
The business plan that existed and it's still viable is operations are sustainable. With certainly, I'm absolutely convinced from the beginning that we designed operations to be affordable with the addition. So in actual, I mean, just to give you an idea, some of the things we've gone to, electrical service to the building was provided at a big enough service originally to suit the studio as well. In fact, we're going to be downsizing our electrical service to the building and our transformers, because we'll be moving to energy efficient LED sources throughout. Both. So in fact, we're going to use less hydro. And to give you an idea, our utility bill is about $120,000 a year, right? So this is not a small piece that we pay. And so we'll be using less hydro. This wouldn't work if it was a standalone management team, but we already have a management team. We have a technical team. We need to expand it. And yes, it's the intention right now is to operate this within our, and I'm certainly happy to go over operation budget with you. I didn't bring that part today.
I want to make sure you have it. It's yours.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councillor Fuller.
I get told I'm anti-business by business people in the community all the time, and I fully expect after tonight I'll probably be told I can't stand culture and heritage and the arts.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Which is totally untrue. I'm not going to support number one, and I'll tell you why I'm not going to support number one on this new one. If I support number one, that takes us right back to the motion of September 8th. And in that motion, it talks about allocating the $4.6 million to you guys, dependent and conditional on you securing the remaining funds. So until you get those funds, we would not even give you that money. You get the line of credit.
Correct.
Yeah. And what if you don't get the funds?
Well, then your 4.6 doesn't kick in.
Well, exactly. So why would you want that? Why wouldn't you want it the other way, where we would kick in the 4.6, then you get the grants, then you apply for 100%, and then even if you get more through the generosity of the community, you pay back some of that 4.6 million.
I see your point. And the fact is, this will be a city-owned building. Therefore, it will be a city building process. This will be a city-run project. Construction is not going to start until the city says so. So whether or not the 4.6 is released ahead of the remaining funds, it makes no difference operationally. Structurally, we will not break ground until the funds are allocated. The feds, of course, if the feds were to chip in a big chunk of money, they don't give it to you up front. That's also a reality.
I get that, and I seem to recall from staff that at another meeting that our making it contingent that 4.6 be paid back if you apply for the whole 100% would not affect the applying for those grants. Now you're coming back and saying, well, yes, it's going to affect the applying for those grants. Who's wrong in this one?
Everything I know and all my sources tell me, and it's confirmed speaking with Victor, that one, these grants are not available. You cannot apply for 100%. You can only apply for matching funds, and the municipality has to be a partner, a contributing partner in this.
And that's not what I was told by staff at the last meeting, because that's why we came up with the motion that we did. Was based on the recommendations of staff.
That explains it. Yeah.
So
I see both Ms. Samra and Mr. Mema have chimed in.
I'm going to speak to both of those points. So during the initial deliberations on this year, the federal government hadn't come out with all of its guidelines and the different funding and what would be funded. So we weren't in a position to advise on that. There may have been a misunderstanding in terms of the way that last motion has been drafted. The intent wasn't that they would apply for 100% of funding from the federal and if provincial funders existed. It envisioned that if they were so successful in the fundraising, that the reimbursement would come from that. There was never the intention to direct you to do 100% financing or funding requests to the other levels of government. So that's one of the deficiencies in the drafting of that evening that we're trying to correct. The other issue, and I've now lost what that was, but it was an important one. Oh, that motion up there, I was going to make a couple of comments on it. If you can put it back to the very first one, Appendix A. I would suggest that number 1 is spent, that process has taken place and it is no longer, it's spent. Number 2 may also be spent, because I don't know what you mean by with a project manager assigned, if there was any specifics as to that. And then number 3 would be the operative part of that motion that is on our books that continues to exist. And then there's an argument whether or not the motion we passed, they adopted recently, would have displaced that motion. I didn't get legal advice on that either, but I'd say 1 is spent, 2 is likely spent. So number 3 is the pertinent things that one must turn their mind to and see whether or not the latest drafting of a motion meets your needs as a council. If that made any sense.
Number 2, in fact, Jan Mongard was requested, and he worked with us as the city representative, following every aspect of design to ensure and safeguard the city through the design process, and that we were meeting budget. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And just one follow-up or a comment on the rest of this is that the way the motion reads now, there's no onus on the Port Theatre Society to raise anything more than the 8.6 million. That's it. So we shoot you the 4.6 million. you know, there's no onus on you to even come back at that, and we could really use that. I mean, I would like to see somewhere in this motion that that is going to happen, if it can happen, but I don't see it in this new motion. There's nothing about potential payback of the $4.6 million.
And that's part of what I was trying to stress in my presentation, in that any wording around us repaying will be a reason for us to be disqualified.
Well, you mentioned intent a number of times. Could the intent not be to pay it back?
I can tell you the Port Theatre's history and our track record is, I think, unparalleled in this city, and our partnership has been incredibly successful. Our intention is to take every advantage, every possibility we can to raise funds. And we don't have a history of going at anything halfway. Without the Port Theatre Society, the Port Theatre would not be here today. Today, it's a $36 million building.
Mr. Bema?
I think I'm just going to raise one piece of conversation that we had at the staff level while we were drafting the final motion. Mr. Halliday does speak to an original intent, and what that was not documented anyway. So what I'll probably offer as an off-ramp for the conversation is if council passes the motion to support, that motion becomes part of the application that we send in, which is where the language that we had from the in-camera one needed to be adjusted a bit. We could then have an understanding, a memorandum on the sides that speaks to the process of incentivizing raising of funds to a certain point that would allow that the process of applying for grants goes on. The process of starting to raise funds also starts at the same time. I struggle to find a way where you could say to anybody, give me this money so I can pass it back to so-and-so. And so that's a challenge in itself. So if the intent is to support, proceed and support, have a memorandum of understanding on a number of concerns that you might have on the sides so that you leave the application to be pure and simple. Thank you.
And I could agree with that, and I would support the motion. The idea is that, there's something out there, whether it's intent, whether it's just this illusion that it might happen, because we're spending over $8 million on a ditch we really don't need, and we're not going to get that back. So it would be nice to hope that we might get something back.
Ms. Sammer.
I feel compelled to recommend an amendment, and it's for a couple of reasons. I'm not sure the last time you updated your cost projections for the addition, and so what I would recommend for, where's the motion? Number 3, sub 1, agree that it has an ongoing obligation to raise the remaining funds, and simply have that. That way you're not tied to cost estimates, and it commits the city to its original amounts. I think that's still within the spirit of the first one. So it would agree that as an ongoing obligation to raise the remaining funds, semicolon, and so you would strike in the amount of up to 8.6 million, and then the bracketed information. It's pretty simplistic that way.
Thank you. What's council's wishes? That would work. Okay. Are you finished, Councillor Fuller?
Yep.
Okay. Councillor Beswick.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor that's been moved and seconded, so I don't know if we can go to 3 point whatever at this point in time.
Yeah.
Without putting that somewhere else, but it's been moved and seconded. Has it been moved and seconded? Yes, it has been moved and seconded.
That's the point. That's the point that you're trying to make, is that we've moved item 1 only.
Yes,
Right.
that's what I meant. So I don't know that we can jump to item 3 out of number 1 when we've got a motion that's seconded. But nonetheless, I just wish to compliment Mr. Halliday and the previous speakers for engaging us this evening. And raising funds at any amount is no easy task, as we have witnessed with the Aquatic Centre and many other venues and many other events, attractions, and activities. And I'm glad that everybody's talking slowly, because then I get an opportunity to understand it, because I need slow. $13.2 million back in 2014, 8.6 and 4.6 from the city. And once you reached your 8.6, it triggered the 4.6, and there's no monies committed until such time as you get there. You came back to us, and at the time when you came back to us about a year ago, to say, our fundraising initiatives haven't reached the targets that we originally set. And you were complimented, you and Mr. Jackman, for coming back, because we don't usually hear people come back to us and say, hey, you know what? We didn't reach our goals when we thought we would, and we thought it was important that we let you know. So I really appreciated that. And
partnership.
Correct. And I haven't forgotten that. And I also recall us indicating at the time that the money was there as a placeholder. So we didn't go away, and you didn't go away. You just went back and you re-envisioned what you needed to do with your membership and beyond to be able to come back to us. And you've tried with the previous Triple P that you mentioned that we can't talk about. And so it hasn't gone without effort and energy on your part and that of your membership. So I compliment you for that. When we speak to the sponsorship money, whether it's naming rights for the building over 10 years or 20 years or whatever it is, in one way or another, that money does come back to us. Really, it does. It supports us because it supports you, and at the end of the day, it's the same thing.
Indeed.
So it really does come back to who gets it, we get it. We all get it.
Project.
We all benefit from the sponsorship. And if I can simplify this a little bit more, when you reach your threshold of the amounts of monies that you've indicated and identified that you need, and at the time it was in 2014, so let's say we were going to build in 2017 or wherever that date was, and so now the thing's moved out 3 years, and I'm just hopeful that the amounts of money, and that triggers the comment from our city manager that just raise the necessary amounts, or the amounts necessary, or whatever the wording was. Raise the remaining funds. Sorry, I better be accurate. And so indirectly or directly, I'm going to support number 1, and I'm going to support the balance. Because as much as anything, we need to be able to allow you to get on with the work that's necessary. And just because we commit to our $4.6 million tonight, you've got to roll your sleeves up, and you've got tons of work to do. And if there wasn't the confidence that I believe that this council has in your ability to do that, and you've been honest with us, and that to me is a huge commitment from you and the people that are in this audience tonight. And we're not going to let anybody forget who's in this audience tonight, who said what, and that you will not put us in a compromising position without knowing full well the detail of what it is that next steps are. But I know one thing for sure. I'm committed to the $4.6 million that we were in September of 2014, and I wish you well, and I hope that the Build Canada Infrastructure Fund and everybody else gets on board with this project. So that's all I have to say.
Very much, and that support means a great deal to us, and we will continue operating as we have completely professionally and open, transparent, and work with you.
Ms. Sammer.
The cost estimate from 2015 that I'd like to submit, if I could.
So I want to take you guys through one more time. Appendix A, the 2014 motion, if somebody can put it there. So I just want to be clear then that number 1 is spent, number 2 is spent, and half of number 3 is spent. So the line of credit has happened. So you've co-signed the $2 million. So the only two things that have not occurred from this original one is a contribution of 4.6, dependent and conditional on the Port Theatre Society securing the remaining funds. And that is the amendment I'm recommending to 3 sub little 1. So there's a good harmony between the original one and this updated one. And that should make it okay to confirm what happened then, rescind the offending, badly drafted second motion that was adopted recently, and then replace with what you have in front of you with that one amendment.
Great, thank you. Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. Mr. Halliday and everybody else that spoke to this, even the people who spoke against it. I think this is a really worthwhile project. The Port Theatre is an amazing asset in our community. I commend you all and am in awe of you to think that you're going to actually go out there and raise that amount of money. That's not an easy task. It's a very difficult task. And the fact that you have so many people committed to making that happen is wonderful and says something about our community and the importance of arts and culture in our community. I can't wait for this to happen. I know that it's going to bring something that I felt was missing to Nanaimo, and I'm really looking forward to it happening. So thank you for all your hard work, and thank you to everybody for just getting on board with this and working so hard to make it happen, to figure out how it's going to happen. And I just wish you good luck. I really do. It's not going to be easy, but it will be worthwhile.
Councillor Yocum.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just wondering, the conversation's gone to 1 to 3. If possible, if we have a friendly amendment, can we omnibus this, or do we got to go one by one?
We've moved and seconded.
Okay.
Seriatim.
Yeah. Okay. Just thanks.
Councillor Fuller.
This has been a great discussion. It's been a really good discussion because now I'm going to support number 1, having that clarified, with the potential for the change to number 3. Then it'll all tie in, it won't be dirty, and it'll make sense to me. So, thank you.
Councillor Brennan.
I'm going to support this, and because I believe that the funds can and will be raised. I have great faith in the Port Theatre Society's abilities, and in your fundraising has been shown in the past. So I don't hesitate to support this, and I never have. I think that another reason that I believe the money is going to be raised is because of the current climate, and the federal government is open to funding, and I would suggest they're even anxious to get funds out in the communities so that we can use them for economic development as much as arts and cultural development. And I think that we have to see this in that wide a scope to have, the absolute faith that I do that this money will be raised, and shortly we will be operating with a second theater on that site. So thank you, and thank you for taking that on.
What are these outbursts? Who are these people? Okay, so the There's no more speakers on that one. So on the motion, which is to confirm the city's 2014 September 08 commitment, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
So
Next,
move item 2.
Moving, Councillor Bestwick moving item number 2. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Yoakum. Thank you. So item 2 has been moved and seconded. Discussion. Councillor Bestwick.
Oh, that's all right.
No. Seeing no questions, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Move number 3 with the amendment. Move number 3 as amended.
Number 3 as amended. Councillor Yoakum seconding.
Should that be read out? As amended.
Replace the rescinded motion with the following motion. The city allocate up to $4.6 million in contribution funding for the expansion of the Port Theatre on the condition that the Port Theatre Society, (1) agree that it has an ongoing obligation to raise the remaining funds. Strike the rest, and sub 2, with the support of the city, will actively explore and pursue all funding opportunities from federal and provincial funds in order to maximize funding from senior levels of government, beginning with but not limited to applications to Build Canada, Department of Canadian Heritage, Cultural Spaces, and Canada 150. Full stop.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
We have 13 more items.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be taking a 5-minute recess. Thank you very much, and thank you for your patience. The next item under administration is 7B, Council Spending and Amenities Policy, Acting Mayor Compensation, and this is concerning resolution number 13916, which was passed April 4th at the regular council meeting. It was moved and seconded that the council amend Council Spending Amenities Policy by removing section 3.2 and ratify and affirm adoption as amended. The motion carried unanimously. Note that this refers to Council Spending and Amenities Policy, section 3.2, acting pay rate. The acting mayor will be provided acting pay rate of 10% of the mayor's base compensation. Mr. Mema.
Thank you, Worship. We bring this back per Council's direction that you wanted to provide members of the public time to consider the acting mayor rate, and so that's why this is back in front of you. The intent is to still recommend that Council provide the acting mayor pay rate at 10% of the mayor's base compensation, and so that's the recommendation that we still maintain to reintroduce into the spending policy.
Thank you very much. So I see no motion on this. Can you please advise?
So since this was put aside, I guess I would provide the motion if Council wishes, and the motion would be that Council set the acting mayor pay rate at 10% of the mayor's base compensation.
Thank you. Do we have a mover? So moved. Councillor Bestwick, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Pratt. Discussion. First one is Councillor Fuller.
Yeah, I'd actually clicked the minute Victor started speaking. I'm not going to support the motion. And I'm not going to support it because when I read this, I was going, what is that about? I know we wanted to bring something back to inform the public, but this doesn't mention that. So now we want to make a motion doing effectively what we did that got the public upset in the first place without giving the public a chance to speak to it. what's here on the agenda does not give any indication that a motion was going to be made to move that 10%. It gives no indication. So hence, no delegations applying to speak to it tonight. That's all I can take from this. So I am not going to support the motion that's now on the floor.
Thank you. Councillor Beswick.
Thank you. It's just so that the members of the audience and those at home understand, it is divided by 8. So when people think that it's 10%, it's 10% divided by 8, which whatever that amount turns into, $1,200 or $1,300 for the 7 or 8 weeks that each member of council is serving in the capacity as acting mayor. I understood that because when we voted on this originally and the motion carried unanimously, that the concerns and issues that were raised by those that came to the podium were that they didn't have opportunity to know that that was going to be on the agenda. So we asked, how much time do you need? And we said, well, we'll bring it back on the 18th or 11th or 18th or 25th or whatever the date was. And here it's back here on the 18th. And anybody that was here or at home that was concerned or wanted to speak to this topic that was voted on and approved unanimously knew that they had the opportunity to come back and address this topic tonight, I would think. Because in the absence of not thinking that way, I don't know why this would be on here. Why is it on the agenda then, if it's not on here to approve, reapprove, just as we just did, to reaffirm our commitment to the Port Theatre in September of 2014. So I'm confused that people would not understand that that's what this is. Now, does it say in a report somewhere that council will be revisiting the motion that was made and passed unanimously on such and such date? No. If it would make my colleagues and or Councillor Fuller feel better that we refer this back to staff to bring with a complete report for another later date so that everybody understands the purpose and the intent that is apparently not contained within this 8B or 7B, then I'm happy to give it the 2 weeks that it needs to be able to come back to us. But otherwise, I'm quite comfortable with what my understanding is, and I'm happy to vote to reaffirm the motion that was previously made.
Thank you. Ms. Sammer.
The issue of I'm sorry.
You're on.
Okay.
Your mic wasn't on.
Okay, thank you. Of the acting stipend came as a late item 3 meetings ago. Sorry, Councillor Hahn?
She was just trying to find out. I was helping her.
Okay. Well, I'm
Sorry.
trying to clarify that for you, Councillor Brennan. So this is the 3rd consecutive council meeting that this has been on the agenda. The first time that it came forward, it was as a late item. And in response to delegations, but also questions about procedural items, it was placed on the following a council agenda, and Councillor Hong pointed out during that, so it's on the public record, that council and staff had complied with the notice requirements for placing it on the agenda, and that it had rightfully met the notice period for the citizens of Nanaimo to come forward as delegations to speak to it last week. Again, that was challenged by a delegation, so Councillor Hong made clarifications that this be placed for a third time on the agenda and confirmed with staff that the only things that would be coming forward would be the initial or the original statistical analysis that was provided by the Director of Finance, as well as the recommendation as it came forward as a policy. So this is the third consecutive meeting that this has been placed on. Once as a late item, once as a regular, and I guess the third time, just to be sure that everybody had an opportunity to come forward and speak to this. It was put out out of abundance of caution for this third time. I apologize, I guess from a drafting perspective, if the agenda didn't make that clear, but at the end and close of the last council meeting, we did go through that conversation, and it is part of the public record, and a number of the delegates that had raised issues with this before were present at that meeting. So that's the best I can do, giving you the chronology of it.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
I don't dispute the chronology, the whole bit about it, and I really don't have a problem with the $24 a week. But what I do have a problem with is every item on here we are moving has a recommendation from staff or a motion to it. This does not. Now we're doing it at the last minute again. We're coming up with a motion to reapprove something. And when I looked at this, I wasn't sure what it was about. And I've been coming to meetings for 15 years, and I'm now on council. And I thought, okay, what is this? And yes, I should have sent an email to you when I read this, or to someone, and said, wait a minute, why is this even there? Nothing on this agenda that requires a motion does not have a motion or a staff recommendation except for this. And so the way I see it is we're simply redoing and opening ourselves up for even more abuse from the public. That's just my opinion. So I won't support it. Everybody else can, but I will not.
Thank you. Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. I will be in support of this motion. It has come forward 3 times. To me, it was very clear what we were doing here, and so I don't have any problem with supporting it.
Thank you. Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you. Ms. Samra, I hope you can help me, or Victor, is this came forward almost a month ago. And okay, actually, I'm going to backtrack before it was comments, sorry. Has the acting mayor has whoever's rotation in the rotation been acting mayor always got an increment during that time frame?
No, we have not implemented any changes on the...
Like, say a year ago, sorry, Victor, a year ago, with whoever's acting mayor, did they get this before, or is this totally... So, to me, the conversation is it because the acting mayor, because of the present-day relationship, has more duty? Is that why this has come forward? Or is it because it's long overdue? Or because the acting mayor has to sit in meetings presently because of the turbulent relationship with Ms. Samra and the mayor? I'm just curious. And secondly, thirdly, I think it came to the table and there was a conversation that what due diligence wasn't done. I'm hearing tonight it's the 3rd meeting. But it's still, to me, there's so many moving parts. I'm uncomfortable with this whole conversation, like to have more dialogue. I do like what Councillor Bessick was saying is, like, to table it to more conversation. And so we can get these emails in, answer more questions. And what is the process? And optically, did we give ourselves a pay increase? Maybe $24, maybe lots, may not be, but nevertheless, I always want to make sure we're being transparent and due process around that process. So I knew I threw a pile of stuff out there. Sorry. And I'd be more comfortable of tabling this conversation so we can have more dialogue. And I can get off rambling and actually just send a succinct email. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm of the mind to say I think I at least need some additional information. I wasn't here when it first came up, I don't think. So I would really like, and I haven't seen, and this is likely to be my fault, I haven't located the rationale for this. And so I'd like to see that whole paper, and I haven't seen it. I can't find it on my iPad, and so it would be helpful for me in deciding this if I could have the initial document that started the discussion before I made a decision.
Thank you. Ms. Sammer?
My mic's on.
You just turn yourself off.
Okay.
There you go.
So just response to both Councillor Yoakum and Councillor Brennan. The discussion about a stipend for acting mayor duties, as well as the portfolio, originated in camera, and it originated around discussions for a couple months now about the increase in duties that council members were taking on over the last 4 months, and a recommendation from staff was to consider a stipend, and there's email exchanges over the last couple of months, of which you're included, about this rationale, and the Director of Finance was asked to undertake an analysis to see what that would look like, and he did the comparative, and again that was circulated by email to Mayor and Council over the last month. And I believe the first time that this finance policy came to the table, I think there's a lot of media coverage on it, newspaper, etc., about the recommendation from staff to adopt the financial policy, and it had a number of different parts in it. Most of it was motivated by the need to reassert and confirm and make it very clear what the spending and finance policies are for the city, because they were in 4 or 5 different spots, and so we drew those together, and you can watch the tape on that. Victor provides a good summary of that, as did I, and I think in the last meeting we may have had this discussion again, but it was about the workload for Mayor and Council in this present environment, and was brought forward by your internal discussions about how to deal with this and the amount of time that Mayor and Council were taking to engage in governance, and that is why he had the recommendation of a stipend. It's a very modest one. It's something that staff were asked to look at, and we brought it back to you, and we included it in that policy. Whether or not you want to accept it or not, that's entirely up to council. We just gave you comparators, so I'm not sure what else I know it's been ongoing conversations about this policy, so that's the best I can offer you.
Thank you. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. Just as a quick follow-up, a couple of weeks ago when Mr. Mima brought forward at our request a comprehensive and consolidated spending policy and governance policies and put it all into one document, and then morphing out of that and was the comparators that was provided to us on similar sized cities and what they do, and there was a myriad of things on that spreadsheet that included mileage and whatever, all kinds of columns of information, and the only piece for us to consider was the median where we would fit in if there was a stipend paid for councillors serving as acting mayors. And why did we have this conversation? The conversation arose, as was just explained eloquently, because of topical issues and concerns of the additional requirement of the acting mayor, most recent. And that is how we arrived at this, to some concern as it related, because as it formed part of a larger document, we didn't give enough advance notice to the public, which is legitimate. That's fine. And so we extended it, and here we are. So I just asked if this is defeated, that's fine, and then we'll make another motion behind that to follow that to include a full report, which will probably be old reports that will be included for discussion in a couple of weeks from now. And it has been available to all of us, and we have had these conversations for the most part with 100% of us in attendance. And it was provided to us in hard copy, as well as all on our iPads. So I know how I'm wishing to proceed, and I know how I'll vote, but whatever way the vote goes, we all best be prepared to come back with, if it doesn't pass, to have a full discussion.
Councillor Hong.
Thank you. I think, like I said, this has been the third time. If we defer it again to next week and roll it into the notice of motion you have, so be it. I think we're going to get the exact same results that we had tonight. I don't think anybody has big issue. I think we've given enough notice. Let's stop dragging this along and let's move city business forward, and let's just get on with it and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller.
Well, I would like to make a motion to table this. And if there's a seconder, then we can vote on it. And if it doesn't pass, then we go back to the original motion. But, I would like to make a motion to table.
Is there,
so we can come back and do this right.
is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Yoakum. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Councillor Kipp, Pratt, and Bestwick opposed. Next item.
No,
Yep. Motion carried to table.
no, I know. But I would like some instruction on what it is that you need
What's that?
in a report.
A motion.
Okay, so you just want a motion? Do you want more comparators? Shall we do a number of hours of what you used to do and what you do now? Do you want us to provide us some instructions so that we can go back and make sure you have all the information that you need in front of you? If it requires more of the rationale, certainly we can bring forward what's been put there, but please do provide us with some instruction.
Okay. So as I made the motion to table, then providing some rationale in writing as in a report as to why we are doing this would be fine with me. Like I say, I don't have a problem with the intent behind it, and in all likelihood I will support it when it comes back. But it makes it clear to the public why we're doing it. It gives the public a clear opportunity, and I mean a very clear opportunity, to come and speak to it.
Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you. Not to belabor this conversation, I'm sure it's exhausting, but it's also very key because I don't want to be labeled as just giving myself an increase. First of all, I have no interest actually being acting mayor, but nevertheless, when that comes up, I'll do the best I can because I don't have the time like you guys. Jerry spent so many hours in the city this week and last month, as Jim did earlier and Bill before that. But the reason I'm not pushing, but supportive of this, for the simple fact is I think the public has to know how much work the acting mayor is doing and is considerable for the unfortunate relationship between the mayor and Ms. Samra, where we have to have an acting mayor present. And the public doesn't know all the stuff that's happening, just think, those guys gave themselves an increase. And that is not, so there's more to the story to the story. So I just hopefully that comes out why, when Gordon's saying rationale and other reasons. So I just wanted the full picture to be shown, so it's not like, we're giving ourselves a $24 increase. There's reasoning, and hopefully that report comes out and demonstrates the work that these guys have had to put in so far, since we're in this unfortunate scenario. Thank you.
Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, I too would like some description of the rationale as to why councillors are having to attend as acting mayor more often than they had in the past, and why that would generate, or I know if that's the case, that they are having to, I'd like to know why they're having to. I don't dispute that if they are, that additional funds could be paid, but I'd like to know what the reasoning behind councillors having to be at more meetings than they typically were before.
Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. The reasons for could not possibly have been more definitive in motions that we've made, voted on by this council, the majority of which I'm going to say have been unanimous, that are public record and knowledge, and the rationale for the reasoning behind why we've suggested. I just heard Councillor Yoakum say how much time and additional work and load that Councillor Hong has had to put in. And I think we all get those schedules. So I think we all know that. And I also think, when I said earlier, be ready then for a full discussion. If you want to have this full discussion again, then be ready for the full discussion. Because I will look forward to the full discussion, which I think is unnecessary. We voted on this unanimously, and now here we find ourselves having to regurgitate this information again, which I probably don't think is healthy, but I look forward to having the full discussion and encourage everybody to come prepared and willing to have that full discussion and move and advance this minor item forward.
Ms. Emmer?
Well, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Brennan, I would just reiterate that Council has adopted a number of motions as my employer that have necessitated the changes, and you've been a participant in those discussions for the last 6 months. And they are HR matters, but if you want to release those in a report, we'll probably have to get some legal advice, but it's unfortunate that I don't know what to say. I'll just not say anything else.
Closed information, that's what you're relating to me then, that the motions were passed and closed and formed the rationale for the increase, which has to be discussed in public. Am I getting that part correct?
I don't really understand your line of questioning, so I'm having difficulty responding.
Okay.
Only just because you're a member of council and you've been at all these meetings and get the minutes and a participant on those and on the mayor and council email and legal advice, so I don't know why you're questioning me about that in an open meeting. So I think I'll refrain from making any more comments.
I'm not
I
actually
don't think it's appropriate.
I'm not actually questioning you. I just want to know how this occurred, because my sense is that we are having councillors act as mayor more frequently because we're not necessarily satisfied with the mayor's performance. That's what I'm thinking, that we haven't been satisfied with the mayor's performance, and so we're thinking, okay, let's partner him up with someone, and perhaps that would be better. So if I understand that correctly, then I just don't want to support that, because what I would prefer to do is take that amount of money, and if there is dissatisfaction, I guess you're right, it's on tabling, but Ms. Samra asked what we wanted. Yeah, but there was then a request by the CAO for what we wanted.
Council, I think staff has been given their instructions.
Okay.
So we should end this discussion. Thank you very much. So next item. Development permit, DP, 885 at 355 Nickel Street. And the purpose is to present council with a development permit application for the exterior renovation of an existing 3-story personal care building and the construction of a 3-story addition at 355 Nickel Street.
Move the recommendation.
Move the recommendation.
Should I read it with the reduce required front setback from 8.5 to 5.37 meters? Reduce required north side yard from 4 to 1.79 meters. Reduce required on-site parking from 6 parking spaces to 4 parking spaces, and increase the allowable fence height from 1.2 to 2.9 meters.
Thank you.
Second.
Councillor Bestwick, second. Thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next one is Development Variance Permit, DVP 284 at 6430 Portsmouth Road. And the purpose is to present council with a development variance permit application for a lot frontage variance in order to facilitate a 2-lot residential subdivision at 6430 Portsmouth Road. And it's requested the council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to DVP 284. Is there anyone wishing to speak to DVP 284? For the third time, anyone wishing to speak to 284?
All right, so moved that council issue development variance permit 284, DVP 284 at 6430 Portsmouth to reduce the minimum lot frontage requirement from 15 meters to 12.45.
Second the motion.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councillor Fuller.
I recall an email from someone who I believe lived immediately behind that had some concerns with some large trees. I believe the 50-meter wide lane reserve covenant should accommodate those trees, but I'd just like to know that from staff if possible.
Your Worship, certainly I would concur with the assessment that the lane reserve covenant and the setbacks have the potential of preserving any trees that are on the property. I'm sorry, I'm not aware of correspondence from the neighboring property owner, but we can certainly follow up with them and have that discussion.
Councillor Bestwick. You finished, Councillor Fuller?
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. Just to follow up to staff, the proverbial word there to me was potential too. And I'm not comfortable then, because I understood similarly that laneway dedication, which I don't think will ever happen because of the necessary consolidation of properties required for that to happen. It may, I won't be here when it does, that buffer would be preserved until such time as it was required for the intended laneway purpose or whatever that is. So if that is not the case, if it has potential to, then I'll have to vote against the motion that I moved. If it will retain the tree buffer line, then I'm quite comfortable to support the motion. But I need to know that.
Thank you, Councillor Bestwick. I think that's an important point. So absolutely, the setbacks from the property, the reserve, there's no need for in the immediate short term for those trees to be removed. If the lane, and I agree that's a long-term goal or objective is for the lane construction, if that lane's ever constructed, obviously the trees would need to be removed at that time. In the interim period, this is still a single-family property in the city of Nanaimo, and with or without the subdivision, it's subject to the tree protection bylaw, which as a single-family property owner, they can remove those trees unless they are of a heritage status, and these trees are not. So any property owner can apply to remove the trees on their own property, and if they're removing a small number of trees, those can actually be done without even obtaining a permit from the city.
Follow up, please. Follow up, please. Then is it apropos to have a covenant placed on that? Because we also deal with root damage, be it accidental or not, that the trees would ultimately come down. So what I'm hearing you say is, regardless of whether or not we think that there is a tree buffer line there for a future dedicated lane, the lot owner could come in and take them down with a permit anyways.
That's absolutely correct, Your Worship. And my point was that could occur today under the existing lot, or if this variance was approved and there was two separate two properties created.
Complete. Councillor Fuller.
It says there's going to be a covenant on that 5 meters from the back of the property. If this goes through, there will be a 15-foot covenant at the back of the property. That's what it says in my report, page 43. 5-meter wide lane reserve covenant shows it right at the back of both properties that would be subdivided. I'm thinking that in the future, any of the other ones along the way that want to subdivide will also have that lane covenant. So whether or not that, if the covenant is there, they can't be doing anything on that 15 feet.
No.
That's my understanding.
No.
Unless they do it before it's approved.
Your Worship, I should clarify, that's simply a road reservation covenant which allows the city to obtain that property in the future at a nominal cost. It does not do anything else. It doesn't protect the lands. It doesn't preserve existing foliage on that property. And until such time that the city takes it as road dedication, it would be part of the property and subject to all of the bylaws of the city.
I get it.
Councillor Kemp.
If you want to protect the trees, you have to have a covenant to protect the trees. Otherwise, the trees are fair game because our logging plan or tree protection bylaw does not even recognize residential lots. You can pretty much clear your lot for whatever you want, unless it's a registered heritage tree.
So, Council, I am surmising that the owner's representative is standing up in the aisleway there. Would it be of any help to Council to hear from the owner's representative? I know it's unusual.
Yes.
By consent? Thank you. Mr. Brown.
Council, Your Worship. This is the third application along Portsmouth Avenue. There's one down closer to Applecross, about 2 doors in. There's one right next door to this one, where we have passed 3 lots next door, and this one's 2, and the other one down the street was 2. The lane, the very time the first one came up, that was down at the other end of the road, I raised a question that I thought that the entire block area from Portsmouth to Dover Road would never become a Core 1 development area. That means they could be going to higher uses. But rather than take that as a blank statement, I did qualify and say because Portsmouth Road, was fronting onto an entire commercial mixed use all the way along the street right down to Applecross, which is the Woodgrove Pines, and then you come all the way back up to the car dealership in front on Dickinson. But the lane covenant was to protect as the land got further developed. But I don't believe it'll ever get down to Portsmouth. That's a perfect block of land all the way behind, uninterrupted from commercial developments intruding or anything like that. So that land, I believe, under the community plan, was not designated correctly. Portsmouth, there's a little bit of flexibility to come across the road and do something because you're facing commercial, industrial, winning warehousing apartments. So going into 2 lots was a straightforward move. The 5-meter lane, wide lane reservation, you may want to hold that as another discussion in the near future if you want to take it as now. I'd like to see the application go forward, but you can always lift the lane covenant if you don't wish to proceed. But that entire block needs to be revisited in terms of the back properties. You go to the back one to the next road, and then you go all the way down to Dover with the same core designation. I think it's I'm going to call it an oversight from the planning process that they took such a broad brush on it. And I think in area right there, Portsmouth, South Anthony, Dover, that's totally unencroached upon from higher uses. So suggesting that taking these covenants across these 3 lots there is just unreasonable, but it's part of the conditions we meet. So we're able to get the 2 lots still without impairing the ability to get a density of 2. But from the point of practicality, what the heck's the lane for? I don't believe in the whole process of that designation. But I pointed it out, and I have to leave it there, and hopefully it'll get picked up on. Councillor Thorpe understands. I've talked with him once on that, who lives in the area.
Thank you.
So from that supporting point of view, he was supportive of what we're doing, not the bigger picture as a whole. There's a big question mark there.
Thank you. Do you have a question for the delegation, Councillor Fuller?
Certainly do.
Okay. Pardon me?
You've been on the property.
Yes.
You know the property. Do you know the trees that I'm talking about? Are they
the back trees? Yes.
Are
yeah.
they right at the property line? Do they span the property
there's
line?
the mobile on it right now, and there's a bunch of trees around it.
Well, no, I'm talking the big trees at the back of the property.
They're all.
The person
a lot of those lots are back trees going back to the corner. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that the person who sent us the letter had a concern about, because what he's concerned about is when you put those 2 lots in, they're going to impact on his back view and all that without a heck of a lot of cover in between, and he thought those 2 big trees might offer that little bit of protection. So that's the only question I have. I now know all about the lane covenant. Thanks, Mr. Lindsay. That clarified that one for me. I thought it was an actual covenant.
Okay.
So is there any way those trees would be able to stay? Would you be able to discuss that with the property owner behind?
To answer that question, there's the road covenant or lane covenant, and there is such a thing as a tree covenant to protect trees. However, the majority of the properties in the city of Nanaimo don't have tree covenants. So I think you have to go with the buyer saying that they're going to take them out or not. I think a tree covenant, when you're getting on water courses or long trails and those types of things, I think it makes sense on both sides of a trail, on the trail, abutting properties to the trails. Whether you're on the creeks, the same thing. But that's, I guess, a little bit. I'm not one to knock the trees down, but I think that's another discussion. I think just on a flat piece of land. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. I'll ask you first, sir, and then maybe, first of all, maybe just to staff quickly, is this a recent aerial view of this area? What we're seeing on page 44? Because if it is, there's a lot of trees there. There's a lot of trees that.
Yeah, I think if you moved your film across, you'll see there's a lot of trees in many of the lots.
There's a lot of trees on both lots, and I think, in all fairness to the developer, we need to be sticking to the development itself. There are a lot of trees on these lots. There's a lot of trees around here.
Mm-hmm.
And now that you've heard the discussion here, you're aware that trees are an issue. That laneway has trees on it, I'm assuming.
Yep.
And nothing's going to happen to that laneway.
If you so wished, I mean,
It'll never.
I would think of if you really want to preserve the trees, it would be based on a parallel line to the rear lot line.
Right.
And that would carry through. If the person on the north side, I believe he has spoken previously,
right.
He just bought the property, I believe, and just became aware of it. My comment would be that a tree preservation, I'm not going to buck that argument at all.
Right.
But I think it's a matter of the depth, in terms of the thing. But the lane is just absolutely doesn't fit the planning process. Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. Thank you for your view on this. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the motion has been moved and seconded. Seeing no further speakers, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, rezoning application number RA 361 at 3150 Mexicana Road. The purpose is to present council with a rezoning application to rezone the lands at 3150 Mexicana Road from single dwelling residential R1 to townhouse residential R6 in order to permit the construction of a 4-unit multifamily development. There's a recommendation on page 45. We have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Yoakum, seconded by Councillor Bestwick. Discussion. Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Councillor Hong, can you read the bylaw, please?
Are we doing the Parks and Rec one?
No, the motion on page 51.
Oh.
For first reading.
Just read this.
The zoning amendment bylaw 2016 number 4500.097 RA 361 to rezone the lands at 3150 Mexicana Road from a single family dwelling residential R1 to townhouse residential R6 in order to permit the construction of a 4 strata titled single family dwellings past first reading.
Thank you. And seconder. Councillor Pratt, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And for second.
That zoning amendment bylaw number 2016 number 4500.097 pass second reading.
And a seconder? Councillor Bestwick, thank you. Seeing no discussion, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, rezoning application number RA 364 at 1099 Bruce Avenue. And the purpose is to present council with a rezoning application to rezone a portion of 1099 Bruce Avenue from steep slope residential R10 to townhouse residential R6 in order to permit a 21-unit townhouse development. There's a staff recommendation on page 53.
So moved.
Move the recommendation. Seconded by Councillor Pratt. Thank you. Discussion. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. If I could just speak, it's not specific to this project, but and we've had over a decade or so had conversations about community contribution, and I've learned most recent that there's been some comparisons made as it relates to our fee versus other communities' fees per door, et cetera. And I'll be supporting this staff recommendation. My question to staff is, have we ever reviewed community contribution as it relates to other developments, community contributions in other cities?
Your Worship, the last time the issue of community contributions was reviewed, I think it was in 2013, and it was through work done by the Development Process Review Committee. And at that time, there was a consultant hired with a background in land economics who gave some recommendations to the committee, which resulted in the current policy that we have today, which is the $1,000 a door for residential developments. And at that time, yes, there was a comparison that was done between ourselves and other municipalities, both on the island and Lower Mainland.
If I could just follow that up, please. I recall fondly the DPRC and many topics that were discussed at that table over a few years. And did the consultant literally and figuratively make recommendations?
Your Worship, my recollection is that the consultant did make specific recommendations that were endorsed by DPRC, and I can confirm they were brought forward to council and ultimately adopted by council.
And would you think that the opportunity exists to revisit those recommendations and community contributions in the future?
Absolutely, Your Worship. I think it's like any of our bylaws. They're fluid and from time to time need to be reviewed to make sure they remain current. So that last update was approaching 3 years ago now. So certainly something we could do if council wished, yes.
Thank you. And just my last comment on that then. If as we move through 2016, and I certainly don't anticipate that to take place between now and the end of the summer or whatever. I know this is a very busy year for us. But if you could please put it somewhere in a calendar to make its way to a discussion, I would appreciate that sometime toward the end of 2016, if that's fair, or sometime early in 2017, if that's fairer. So you don't need a motion for anything like that. You just put it somewhere in there and we can have this conversation in 9 to 12 months. Thank you.
Seeing no further speakers, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Councillor Hong.
Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2016, number 4500.096, RA 364, to rezone a portion of the subject property from steep slope residential R10 to townhouse residential R6 to permit a 21-unit townhouse development. Pass first reading.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Kipp. Seeing no discussion, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That zoning amendment bylaw number 2016, number 4500.096, pass second reading.
Seconded by Councillor Kipp. Thank you. Seeing no speakers, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, Regional Parks and Trails Service Area Amendment Bylaw number 1231.05 2016 to obtain Council's consent for the adoption of a Regional District of Nanaimo bylaw. And we have a addendum. Staff recommendation that Council consent to the adoption of Regional District of Nanaimo Parks and Trails Service Area Amendment Bylaw, and further that the Regional District of Nanaimo be notified accordingly. Moved by Councillor Pratt. Seconded by? Councillor Bestwick. Discussion. Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item. Proposed Council Portfolios Policy, and that is to present Council with a draft policy and assignments regarding Council portfolios. Staff recommendation that Council adopt the Council Portfolios Policy and assign Council members to portfolios as contained in Attachment B of the staff report.
I so moved.
Moved and seconded. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. On page 70, just that C&H is Suzanne Samborski. Obviously, that will be.
Actually, there's an error. The tables weren't supposed to be attached. We're not going to be able to anticipate the different departmental structure pending going forward. So that I would that needs to be struck. Appendix B needs to be taken off.
And I was just going to compliment staff for giving me what my assignments were for the next year. So I will take back.
We're not going to do it to 2018.
Shame on you. I take my compliment back.
Strike it.
Councillor Brennan.
Councillor Brennan, did you say?
Yes.
Okay. I struggle with this one. I don't. I'm not familiar with it. I don't know how it's intended to further the business of the city. I think it kind of breaks the relationship between councillors and the public up, and so for those reasons, I won't support it, but I will be interested in watching it quite closely, but at this point, I don't understand the case.
Thank you. Councillor Four.
I have some concerns around the public comments myself. I get emails from the public just like everybody else, and it would be nice to be involved in whatever the answer is, not just forwarding it to the portfolio lead. And I think that's the case, that we would all be involved. It's just narrow. I think the intent, here we go with that intent word. I think the intent is to cut down on the number of emails going back and forth between different items and different questions being asked, and that I could agree with. What I would like to see is a change to number 1 on page 68. And it talks about rotating on a quarterly basis. And to me, I think that is too short amount of time, because during a person's tenure as a portfolio holder, they may be starting a process on something and working on a process and keeping the rest of council informed about what work is going on in the process, but then they no longer become part of that portfolio, and that process may slide back into the ether because the next person coming on to the portfolio may not see that item as being that important to that that division of city staff. So I would like to see the term, rather than saying quarterly rotations, I'd rather see it 4 to 6 months.
So I think those are some interesting comments, Councillor Fuller. I think what I'll take some time to walk through this and kind of go, why do we have this? One of the primary motivators of having the portfolio system was to improve the working relationship between council and senior management. That was a prime motivator of me recommending this, and this is something that we workshopped quite a bit at the senior management table to get their feedback and what their thoughts are on that, given some of the conflict that existed before between senior management and council prior to my arrival. So I think that's an important thing to underscore, is that this was about a positive working relationship and that this was embraced fully by senior management as an opportunity to interact with council members, not at this table on television, but to have an opportunity to engage with council members. That said, one of the things that this is not is an opportunity for council members to become involved in the day-to-day operations of each department. That's my job, and that's the director's job. So it's about relationship and knowledge transfer and positive working relationships, and also a learning opportunity for new council members who may not have been on the city before, and they get to see, how does Richard Harding run Parks and Rec? How does he work with his team? What are the types of things that he's doing? So it's really it's really an opportunity for positive outcomes and to promote a harmonious relationship within our organization. And I think the fact that, and I said this on television a week ago, the fact that senior management gave me permission to say that they are 100% behind this, I think demonstrates how much positive change and opportunity are happening within the city and with council and senior management at the city of Nanaimo. What this manual is trying to do is to say, well, let's try this out on quarterly and see how that works, because there's a lot of different departments, and you guys can amend this as you need to do it. It underscores what happens in the community charter. I'm your sole employee. I'm responsible for the day-to-day operations of the city. So this will operate within that context. It's not trying to curtail your ability to respond to the public, because that's what you were elected to do. And it's staff job when something comes into mayor and council for information or a complaint to get you that information as soon as you can. These are just general guidelines. Sometimes the portfolio holder may be all over it and know a lot about the issue that's been raised, and sometimes they may not. But you should be able to engage with the public. That's what you were elected to do, and we're not trying to stop you from that. We're trying to support you with knowledge and with tools so that you can have that type of engagement with the public. At the same time, I'm being a little protective of staff. I don't want you be giving them instructions on how to run their department, because those instructions come from council as a whole. If you want something done and want something looked at, that happens at a council meeting. And you guys adopt a motion and you direct staff to do something. So it's just those gentle reminders, because there's different types of council governance, some where they're completely hands-off and not doing others, and others where they're a little bit more involved. Depends on the size of the community. So we're all going to explore this and see how this works out. And in a couple of months, check in and say, what can we do to improve this? What do we do to adjust this? But it's about empowerment for council, it's about relationships, and it's about an opportunity for staff to share with you the great things that they're doing. And all of them were excited. I know they emailed each of you guys. They've got tons of meetings set up, maybe a little bit too enthusiastic, but I'm really happy it's been embraced that way. So I look at this as a really positive opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. I concur with Ms. Samra on this. I'm really excited about this portfolio system, and I don't see it as us working on projects with staff. I see this as getting into a department and really understanding how it works, who they are, the kinds of projects that they work on, that type of thing. But we would be doing that at a much higher level of insight and knowledge, rather than getting down into the nitty-gritty, as Ms. Samra has said. It's also about building positive relationships with the different directors, and I think that's really important, that they get to know us in a different situation and we get to know them. And it also will give us the knowledge and information we need to be able to speak more knowledgeably to the public. And all of this has been said by Ms. Samra. I'm very excited about this. I don't see a downside to it. We may end up as councillors getting reined in at times by being a little too enthusiastic. But I just see this as another piece of knowledge for myself as a councillor, who then will be able to answer questions a little better when people ask me about them out in the public. And when I look into when I go and I observe within a department, that may trigger things for me around, oh, gee, I never really thought about that, and I think that's something I want to take to council. So already, just in my own portfolio of communications and IT, I learned all sorts of things just in 1 hour with the director that I didn't know before. And just in terms of the breadth and scope of what that one department within our city manages and has to work with. So I just see this as a huge plus, and I will support it 100%.
Thank you, Councillor Beswick.
Thank you. This is so important, and it's so positive, and it is really incentivizing as far as I am concerned. By no means, when I get to the fire department, am I going to tell them how to fight a fire, and boy, when I get to the police station, I'm sure not going to tell them how to shoot a gun. So this, for me, is really about education, informing myself to the best of my ability. We make important decisions that cost a lot of money, and without lunch and learns that we used to do every 2 or 3 months for years to learn about each departments, and they would come and give us an overview. We don't do that anymore. We don't do retreats. We don't do ideas and updates. We don't do these things. So this is a Coles Notes version opportunity for us. There's 9 departments or 9 folios, we're here for 48 months, so we're going to get 5.5 or whatever months to meet with the director 2 or 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. I'm not going to take ownership for any of the departments that I go into. I'm not going to tell them how to do anything. I'm looking forward to learning how it is, what they do, what the best practices that they employ are. Concerns and issues, great. Look forward to hearing them. I'll be 30 to 60 minutes. I've had 2 meetings, looking forward to my 3rd one with my folio that I've been assigned to this Wednesday morning at 8:30. The feedback that I'm getting has been extremely positive, and so I'm really grateful for this opportunity. And again, we're condensing everything. We're really Coles Notes versions because we've only got 2+ years left. So you don't get a 4 or 5 minutes. And I think that's great. I think it's great that we're not sitting there thinking we own it, because I don't want to own it. I don't want to own any of the departments, but I want to learn more about how they drive in and how they drive out and whatever, what works and what doesn't. So that's all I'm there for, and to lend support if the director feels comfortable enough and confident enough to have whatever discussion that they wish to have. And I think that's important, that it's a two-way street. Thanks.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you. I support this motion, and unlike Councillor Fuller, I wish it was actually shorter, because I like to get to every department so I would know what they're doing. So when I come back a second time, I have a better idea. You know, I'm anxious, not that I'm bored of Dale, but I can't wait to get to my next one. And then the next one after that, because that is going to increase my learning. I'm going to increase the knowledge of how the city works. So when the citizens do ask us, I can say, well, it's done this way. Except now it's like, well, I'll get back to you. So information that we can have, I think it's going to be greatly improved for the citizens, so they actually know what we're talking about, and we're just not some dumb politicians sitting in this table making decisions based on information that we're not getting. So it's great that we can actually learn, and that when we know, it's going to be great for us to interact with the staff. I don't know the names of the staff members, I'm sorry, because I never get to see them. Only when they come before us, they're present. And now this gives me a chance to see Dale's entire group in that development. So, you know, I'm thankful that we can actually do this. And, you know, this was something that I didn't think would happen, and I'm glad it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Yocum.
Thank you. Just quickly echo most everyone's words this evening on this topic is Tracy. Just want to state, love it. It's fresh, it's innovative, it's healthy. And it keeps us from getting complacent and out of our comfort zones, and it's a fresh factor, and I love where you're bringing the city. Since you started, you have not held the city back 1 ounce. We've got nothing gone twofolds and forward and onward with your innovative, creative, collaborative approach with your team. And I look forward to be a support with your team where I can. Be like Councillor Bestwick, I'm just going to go in there and learn, but be a support and empower wherever I can. But thank you. I lift my hands up to your fresh ideas. Thank you.
Councillor Kipp.
Well, am I ever going to be a bummer? This is ownership. It creates champions for staff. I've seen it before. Portfolios in every other form of government. A minister, and he takes your full portfolio over. I think every department should come to us and give us insights. I love the lunch and learns before and meeting and touring facilities, which we don't do. And me, I can barely get reports out now on my own business when I have to start writing reports for council. I've been told by councillors before they don't want to hear anything from me. They're sick and tired of it. They just take it from staff. They don't want to hear it from me. Honestly, if I circulate through this group for a number of months, 3 months, I won't learn much about it if I meet once a week. Or do you meet once a week? It's just adding more to my schedule. And I'm not fussy about it. And I go along with George Cuff, one of the gurus of local government, and he didn't think it was a good idea either to have portfolios or bailiwicks. I seen it when we had SAFER going. Man, we get badges and we become part of the group, and that's in the committee meetings. And this isn't like a committee meeting. For me, I'm not that fussy about it. It's not turning my crank too much. So I'll probably vote against it.
Councillor Fuller.
I'm not necessarily going to vote against it. I'm not as negative on it as Councillor Kipp.
Oh, too bad.
But I hear these words, support. You're there to support the staff, empower the staff. Well, if I can't say frickin' anything to them, how am I going to support or empower them? Yeah. Well, no. If I see something and it's wrong, I'm going to say something. And I may have a better idea, and they may shoot me down, and I don't care. I don't mind being shot down on ideas because I don't know everything. But that's how I learn, is to discuss. And if someone's working on something and I want to make a comment to them about it and maybe even make a suggestion, well, wait a minute, have you ever thought of this and take a look at that? Google it or something like that. I want to be able to do that.
And that's got to be done here and not at that meeting.
Well,
that's the problem.
The thing is, I can do it at both. And, I would be doing it at both. So I'm willing to give it a shot for sure. But at this point, I just don't get it. So we'll see. Even the acting mayor thing is going to be a challenge for me because I have another job. So it's going to be tough. And I'm finding that out in trying to schedule some time with Toby this week. Maybe not this week, might be next week. So I'll give it a shot, but hopefully it will exceed my expectations.
Thank you. Councillor Pratt.
I'll make this one short. I've already spoken about this. I just wish it had started right at the beginning of our term because for me as a new councillor, it is invaluable. And I understand, Councillor Kipp, you've been around a long time. You've heard it all. And I haven't. And so I really am looking forward to this. And I had so many questions that very first day when I went and talked to Guillermo. And he was very gracious in being able to give me an awful lot of information in a short period of time. And that's what I want. I just want to know, to me it was like when I saw the infrastructure for underneath this city. As a new councillor, I'd never had or never taken the time to look at something like that and to understand what that was and how vast it is. And the same applies for our IT. It's vast, and that's something I didn't know before. And so that's helpful to me, very, very helpful to me. So I've got a lot to learn, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Great. We have no more speakers. Let's call a question, please.
If I may, has it been, Donna, has it been moved and seconded? Yes. Thank you. And we've amended it to remove attachment B of the staff report? Thank you.
Councillor Kipp.
I got a lot to learn too, but I'm going to go out every department and ask questions through the CAO, dig up information. It still bugs me that I was told before in previous councils that talking to staff could be construed as interfering with the corporation and grounds for dismissal for that person. And it's tough for me to let that go with many of the people who are still in the corporation. I'm not in a good mood about this. I really don't. I'm really getting tired of it, where anything we do has to be prescribed. We're not allowed to talk. We're not allowed to do anything. We can't visit. We can't talk to people. It's so control-oriented. It is so governance over democracy to me that I'm tiring of it. I want democracy. I'm tired of governance because I think governance is phony.
Okay, let's call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, no, Councillor Brennan and Councillor Kipp. Thank you. Moving on to community services. Oh, no, sorry, proposed, yeah. We got Gardner Crescent and Emery Way utility upgrades tender. The purpose is to advise council of a public tender call for $250,000 and above in accordance with the city's purchasing bylaw. We have two delegations today, Mr. Fred Taylor and Mrs. Rosemary Taylor.
My name is Fred Taylor of 204 Emery Way, and I also own 214 Emery Way. Go to page 71 of your staff reports. In the middle of the page, it says permission to enter and property restoration conditions for work on these private properties were negotiated with the affected property owners. That is false. I speak to you in regards to the Garner Crescent Emery Way utility upgrades. Received a hand-delivered City of Nanaimo notice dated March the 3rd, 2016. The project will require access to this by the city's contractor across my properties. Just a minute. Yes, the city has a registered right-of-way across the properties with no reference to any documents of demand. Strange as it happens, the city will issue permits, especially building permits, against specific registered documents of property throughout my subdivision, especially referring to building schemes covenants. And your right-of-way plan and my covenants is registered under the same sections of the Real Estate Act. All documents, including right-of-ways under the Land Titles Act, the city will attempt, in quoting this hand-delivered letter, the city will attempt to minimize any damage to the surface of your properties, and we confirm the project will include restoration of the land as nearly as possible to the condition that existed. A condition sheet was provided for signatures of the owners, which the city has no possession of. The city will complete surface restoration of the properties to city standards. All restoration work by the city shall be of a standard consistent with the current level of improvements in landscaping of the city. 60 days to allowed for claims, actions, causes of actions, or demands for deficiencies for the work performed by the city. Can one trust these words? Recently, a water main and storm sewer were installed on Bowen Road, adjoining Emery Way private properties. Rock and debris were thrown on improved city boulevards by the contractor without city demand to remove. Is this the action of city standards? Throw rock and everything from excavation, everything all over the person's lawn or the city's lawn that he's improved for the city? Within the last month, city officials attended my neighbor's property on a Friday to advise of the clearing of trees and brush for sewer right away, advising of approximately 12 feet, well-maintained, over 50 years of age hedge would not be touched. Well, the following Monday morning, March 21st, the first trees to removed in the sewer right away were the 8 hedge trees. On the Friday, 2 days before, they wouldn't touch them. That's the very first thing that was cut right level with the ground, 12-foot hedge trees. Told they would be left alone. After quick phone calls to the city, a city foreman attended to apologize, saying the city would replace with 6-foot trees, half the height. I demanded, standing there, you replace these trees with the same height, you can get them. And I also said, you better get some security fencing because you've opened this neighbor's property up very well. And he looked at me and said, security fencing? I said, you don't see it, it's used all over the town. So they eventually, right away, got the security fencing to protect the neighbor's yard from access from the public due to cutting his hedge down. The property owners of 214 and 204 will not accept city standards. We demand a signed agreement to restore the properties as found before entry onto the property. A very high priority to us property owners. The city is in receipt of the expectations of the property owners dated March the 7th, 2016, without response. I gave a letter with my demands and not the city, saying they'll do it their way because it's my property, private property. No response. Nothing. And yet they tell you that everybody signed and agreed. False. Access construct, these are the things I'm looking for. Access construction restoration to be limited to 10 days. I don't want my property opened up for 6 months. No removal of any survey steel pegs. They've done it in the past to other adjoining property owners, and it costs that property owner a lot of money to restore those two steel pegs with a new survey plan going to the land titles. Storm drain protection. There's storm drains connected and paid for to a storm drain along Bowen Road, and I want them protected. They haven't got them marked. Establish private property irrigation protection. You went in through Solaire, destroyed all their private property irrigation, said it's old, goodbye. Lot 23, 214 sewer connection to be relocated because it's been placed in front of a very large cedar tree that I have no intentions to want to remove. A 2-year free water irrigation for all the disturbed trees and hedge as you put your new sewer line across my properties, within my property. You've done it for construction elsewhere in the area, a water main up the lane. To the neighbor, even put irrigation pipes in. My irrigation's pipe there, I just want a break on my water. Property fencing, concrete curbing protection to all existing curbs, everything that's on my property. And I've had somebody that's been in the business look at it and said it can be very well done. Protection of existing garden soil. My wife and I spent a lot of time hand sifting all the rock and everything out of the soil down to 2 feet. I don't want it buried and mixed up with stuff out of a ditch. Replacement of present garden plantings and sewer connections with spring cap because they come along and blew air in tremendous force up the sewer line and blew all the water out of my toilets all over my floors. So they had to come along and put a spring cap on all the sewer connections to the sewer line so the air goes up there and not up pipes into the houses. Security fencing. My backyard is for my dogs, and I pay a license to have them. I want security fencing down near the ditch so they can still use the backyard. And I am quite aware of you paying to wash down houses after all the dust of these ditches on the front of my house for water main and on the back for sewer. Elsewhere you've done that. And any other disturbance. Topsoil to the acceptance of the property owner. And alarm protection. All my fence and gates and everything is all protected and wired by alarms. Therefore, contractors have already told me they don't need to touch them, Fred. So I don't want a contractor in there that's just going to man his way through. The rest of the properties have fun because they're not developed for over 50 years. They're bush and you had to go in with crews and cut all the bush down. Mine is improved. What a difference. So I am very willing to negotiate with the city for access. I've offered gates and everything to come down, fencing to come down, to property, go through my properties. Because the question was even asked, where can we get in here? I said, the double gates up there will be open for you to come and do your thing. I have removed personally 7 good-sized fruit trees to get them out of the way for a machine to work across the property in the last couple of weeks. I'm not objecting to you replacing the sewer line, but I want cooperation. I give you you'd send your land department person up with a foreman and started making notes. I said, got it all typed out for you. Gee, thanks. I hear no more. Whether you agree with my demands or not. But I ain't going to accept things done by city standards. I got standards too, and I spend money to have them. I was told today, you got curbs foot thick deep? Yep. That's to stop weeds from going underneath and into my garden. Well, the city only put them in 6 inches deep. I said, no, you won't touch them. I spent $5,000 on putting a cement fence and everything all up between my property and your private walkway in cooperation with being able to let you do something with your lane, in grading it and everything else and putting a water main in. So I'm willing to spend money even to keep my property what I feel is nice or good. I ain't going to accept somebody coming in and saying, well, that's city standards. We throw rocks all over the lawn and goodbye. I've had that experience already, sir. No way. You're on my land now, not city.
Thank you, sir. I see no questions. Next delegation, Mrs. Rosemary Taylor.
Rosemary Taylor, 204 Emery Way, and also property owner of 214. As an owner of 204 and 214 Emery Way, I stress, as your background reports, quote, permission to enter and property restoration conditions for work on these private properties were negotiated with the affected property owners. That is totally false, as was stated by my husband. I support, and am party to the delegation and letter of March 7th, 2016, and today's letter, delegation of April 15th, 2016, of Fred Taylor. But I very strongly believe, after the city committing to protect my neighbor's hedge, and only 2 days later, to completely remove several of the trees as the first action in clearing the sewer right-of-way, I therefore can only demand signed documents by the city to protect my lands, or refuse entry. And specifically, I request that the city manager's signature be on these documents. I do note, I am of the opinion 204 and 214 Emery Way have been improved. The rest of the properties, undeveloped, are in bush. We have, for 38 years, put blood, sweat, and tears into our properties, and I wish them to remain that way and not be desecrated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Move receipt of the delegation.
Thank you. Seconded, moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now, there's a staff recommendation on page 71 that directs staff to issue a call for tender for the Garner Crescent and Emery Way utility upgrade. We have a mover and a seconder to get on the floor. Moved by Councillor Pratt. Seconded by? Seconded by Councillor Brown. Thank you. Discussion. Councillor Kip.
Thank you. On page 71, under background, it's brought to our attention that it says here, permission to enter the property and restoration condition for work on these private properties were negotiated with the affected property owners. They said it wasn't negotiated. What's with that statement? Can staff tell me? It says here that they were negotiated with the affected property owners. Mr. Taylor and Mrs. Taylor said it wasn't negotiated. Has it been negotiated? I'm asking through to staff.
To Councillor Kipp through the mayor. My understanding from the staff that have been working on this file is that the negotiations have been sort of in play with these residents. I know the staff that have been working on this have received a copy of Mr. Taylor's letter, and they're specifically trying their best to address his issues. I mean, one of the issues is around, for example, the window of 10 days of working time. That's a difficult one to accommodate because of the nature of the contract that we'll be setting up for the main installation, and then for the landscaping it may be a separate contract. So and it has some constraints around WorkSafe and prime contractor issues. So we'll have to sort of think through how we are able to accommodate Mr. Taylor's wishes. But certainly we've been in receipt of his letter, and we're doing our best to find ways to work with him to his satisfaction.
Thank you.
Well, that says it was done, so that probably shouldn't have been in that report.
Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. I see Mr. Taylor back at the podium. Do you wish to provide him an opportunity to do
No, we're doing debate right now.
Okay.
We brought back the fourth theater without even a motion. Was called out of the crowd. Separate set of rules.
Sir, how about we just deal with our debate first?
This has.
Sir.
Yes. If we could just move on with this topic, that'd be appreciated. The concerns that have been expressed by the neighboring or the affected property owner, and I have no reason not to, because Mr. Taylor, as we all know, has been in front of us many, many times, and I personally have viewed the hedge that was removed, and I personally witnessed some of the works on Bowen Road that may or may not have been as understood, and so on and so forth. So I don't think for a property owner who is invested in their property would ask to have it returned to its original or its conditions as it was found in. I don't think, for me, that's too much for anybody to ask at any time, that if somebody wished to come through my property, fine, you have to do what you have to do, but it gets returned to the same level that it was before you got here. And I think, and Mr. Taylor has been extremely specific in his requests so that nothing would be overlooked or there would be no oversights. So here it all is. And if you can agree to these things, then come on. And if 10 days is not enough, business days I'm suspecting, so it's 14 days, I guess, then there would be a requirement to have that conversation. But it seems like that conversation has fallen off with a letter that I think is a condition sheet, a standard condition sheet that hasn't been responded to from what I can understand. So I'm sure everybody's anxious to get on with this work, and we're anxious to get on with the public tender call. But I don't think that can happen until the most affected property owners are free and clear of those concerns. that they've expressed. So as much as I want to move this forward, I can't until the property owners are taken care of at the same time or first, or I'm not sure what comes first, but I think that they need to have a sense of security and commitment from us that their properties will be returned to the status that they are today. I don't think that's too much to ask.
Thank you, Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. I understand in calling for public tenders that there's quite a process involved and it takes a period of time, and so those kind of things need to get started with the good weather coming. But I also hear loud and clear what Mr. Taylor is saying, and I don't think any of it is the least bit unreasonable, other than perhaps the 10-day period, but I'm not sure about that. I don't know whether that's reasonable or not. And I would hope that our staff and Mr. Taylor and Mrs. Taylor could work together to make sure that everybody's happy with that time period. As for the rest of it, I completely agree with you. I don't think when city comes in and does something on a person's land, especially very clearly, you've taken really good care of your land and it means a lot to you and you've done a lot of work to it. That needs to be honored, and I would expect our staff to do that. So thank you for coming and raising these concerns. And that's really all I have to say.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to refer this back to staff for another go at negotiations with Mr. Taylor and his wife. That's it. I'd just like you to make another effort at coming to agreement on a negotiation.
Okay. Would you also like to see costs included in that?
Whatever it takes to come to an agreement, that's what I'm asking. Is just like one more try, give it one more try to negotiate an agreement. And if either party is unsatisfied after that, then it comes back to us, because we would, I guess, have to be the final arbiter. But I think that there's no reason why we cannot try one more time to come to an amicable agreement with Mr. Taylor and his wife.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Refer back to staff. Councillor Yoakum? Okay, thank you. On the referral. Certainly.
In discussions with the foreman on site, it was pointed out it would be the first 150 feet of the pipeline for my sewer line, and I was not prepared to have the whole project done before you come back and complete my area. I wanted that 150 feet, 4 feet deep, dug, pipe put in, and get out of my yard, fix it up and get out, because I'm worried about the protection of my little Yorkies and that, and so on. And that's their backyard. And I'm prepared to put up with them having half their backyard, you might say, for the short time. But when all you have to do is put some wire fencing back, dirt and a little bit of grass seed on the pipe, and 150 feet, that's all it is. You can't do it in 10 days, there's something wrong.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Fuller.
Well, I was going to support the referral until I heard that you had Yorkies. I got bit by one of those suckers up at Colliery Dam the other day. They're evil. No. Yeah, I'm not even coming near your place, Fred. If I have a lemon tree, or if I have an orange tree, I want it replaced with an orange tree, not a lemon tree. It's that simple. Whatever's there when you dig it up, replace it with whatever was there when it was dug up. So I'll support the referral.
I've tried to make it so
There you go, even better.
Councillor Hong. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. I understand that moving these things forward is important, and I understand that the citizens' concerns are also important. But I think I don't know if the city ever looks at this, but I also have a concern that when we think that the project is done, we leave and they don't come back to look. I know that these are contracts, and I'm not blaming city staff for not doing this because, again, these are all contracts that are done out. But is it possible for our Parks and Rec to have like a maintenance schedule when we do all of these, that they come to ensure that the properties and the works that we have done, I don't know if this is adding extra work for Parks and Rec because Ian's not here to tell me, but having something like that where we can check back up onto the residents and seeing, hey, how's your grass growing? I'm like, oh, I think you need one of those big green bags in that tree because you're not getting enough water. You know, some sort of follow-up. Because do we do that right now currently? You know, is it hard to ask to make sure that we get this done? That was just a question.
If the landscaping is completed by a contractor, it's typically under a one-year maintenance. So in this case, that was the expectation, is that landscaping would be completed by a contractor. So there would be a one-year maintenance period for that. In this case, if the landowner is concerned about the timeline, there might be some other mechanism that we can complete the landscaping within a more constrained time frame. But that might be, city staff may have to do some of the work themselves, or there might be some, slightly out of the box way to deal with this.
Thank you.
Councillor Yocum.
Just quickly, I echo a majority of the words, and the Taylors are really reasonable. Our staff do a great job. I hope you guys have a quick time frame, and the Taylors are just requesting what was in front of them. And quick question, are those Yorkies what the Queen has? Like the Queen's dog?
No, those are...
What are those? Okay, that's better then. Thank you.
Councillor Bestwick.
I'm fine with sending this back to staff, but can I get a confirmation that it will happen between now and whatever the next meeting, or as opposed to, because I don't think, I hope that the delegation gets their answers to their questions satisfactorily, and so we can move on the next time we get together. I prefer that this not be dragged out. And if there's been exchanges of condition sheets, and if there's been expressions of we'd like this to be returned to, whatever it is today, the same soil conditions, et cetera, that should be able to be accommodated. I get the time frame, the 10 days might be 20 days, I don't know. But hopefully we can get this done by the time we get back to the table next time, because I suspect it's an important project to get underway.
On the referral, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, Millstone Sanitary Trunk Sewer Upgrades Tender. The purpose is to advise council of a public tender call of $250,000 or more in accordance with the city's purchasing policy. Staff recommendations on page 74 to direct staff to issue a call for tender for the Millstone Sanitary Trunk Sewer Upgrades. Moved by Councillor Brennan. Seconded?
Yes.
Councillor Pratt. Thank you. Discussion. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. Just a quick question. This is in our work plan. This is one of the items that was in our work plan to replace. So this isn't something that's just been an emergency or anything. It's just, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further speakers, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, After Hours Support and Security Services Contract Award. There's a motion on page 77 that Council award the After Hours Support and Security Services contract to the Commissionaires Victoria, the Islands and the Yukon, for a total contract price of $421,512, excluding taxes, for a period of 3 years. Do we have a mover? Moved by Councillor Bestwick. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hong, thank you. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. Just a question to staff. Is it reasonable for me to assume, and I understand that it was, we brought this down to two applicants, so to speak, and then an interview. Is it reasonable for me to assume that this amount is similar to the amount that we're paying now? It doesn't, just because the report doesn't tell me what we paid in 2014 or 2013 or 2012. So the answer is yes, it is.
It is similar. It's not a significant change.
And not that I need to have it today, but would you be able to share that information?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Brennan.
The contract, it's being recommended to go to Commissionaires Victoria. Do they have a local office, and will they be using local personnel?
We'd be using the personnel that are currently providing the service today.
Okay, thank you. And the other question about, do they have a local office? They have a commissioner's. Is that a business office or?
I think there is an office right at the bottom of the viaduct there.
Okay.
I'm not certain if it's their business office.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further speakers, call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Bylaws with no accompanying report.
I would so move 10A, that zoning amendment bylaw 2016-4500.089 RA 358 to rezone 416 and 434 Wakasaya Avenue from single-family dwelling R1 to corridor mixed-use corridor 2 to permit a mixed-use building, including student housing, be adopted.
Seconded by Councillor Hong. Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I would so move that. Sorry.
I got it.
Sorry. That the Regional Parks and Trails parcel tax bylaw 2016, it's got really good stuff in it. Number 7228, to provide authorization to collect a parcel tax, be adopted.
Excuse me, Your Worship. We have delegations.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
My apologies. My bad.
Thank you.
Would they
All right.
please
On this item, we have two delegations of 10 minutes each. Ms. Denise Bryce.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here. This is a tough time slot to fill. I'll talk as fast as I can. It's past my bedtime, too. I'm Denise Bryce, and I've lived in my home on Hunter Street, the Townside area, for almost 50 years. I know it's hard to believe. I'm here tonight to present my concerns regarding parcel taxes and bylaw number 7228, which, if adopted, will increase our parcel taxes each and every year from 2016 to 2022 and beyond. We've been paying this parcel tax since 2006. To my knowledge, this is the first parcel tax that has ever appeared on our city's property tax notices, and I hope it'll be the last. I will present my requests now in the event that I run out of time. Then I'll follow up with my arguments. So I'm respectfully requesting that Council postpone final adoption of this bylaw and hold the line on any further increases to this parcel tax. That they request that the Regional Parks and Trails Plan dated 2005 to 2015 be updated to reflect the specific goals and targets for the future and to account for the proposed increases. It does not appear that there is a new updated plan available. Request that a complete regional services review be done to ensure that the city has received its fair share from this Parks and Trails scheme over the past 10 years. Request that the RDN provide an information report to Council and the taxpayers to provide a full accounting of where these funds have been expended, what parks have been purchased, and what improvements have been made, and in whose neighbourhood. Inquire as to what calculations the proposed increases were based upon, especially without an existing plan, and do not give consideration to any further parcel taxes to the city tax bill. Parcel taxes are often used instead of or in combination with user fees to recover the costs of providing local government services. They can be levied on any property that has the opportunity to be provided with the benefit of a service, regardless of whether or not the service is being utilized. For example, if a septic system is in use on a property, but a sewer system is available in the neighborhood, the parcel can be charged a parcel tax for the sewer service on the basis that the parcel could be connected to the sewer service in the future. If the property cannot be serviced by the sewer and no benefit can be realized, the charge cannot be applied. A parcel tax can only be applied to properties that may receive a particular service. It cannot be used to recover costs such as general local government administration costs. The problem with parcel taxes have long been recognized as an extremely regressive form of taxation. Under the parcel tax scheme, each qualifying plot of land in a jurisdiction is taxed the same amount. The owner of a large $3 million piece of land pays the same tax as the owner of a smaller, less valuable plot. There is no consideration given to the occupant's property value or his ability to pay. It is similar to a sales tax that hits lower income people harder than the higher income folks. Generally in Canada, we have decided progressive taxation is a fair way to go. The wealthy pay a little more because they can afford it. The poor pay less because they can't afford it and they need to eat. Parcel taxes hit lower income people harder and are almost laughable to the rich folks. In the past, municipalities actually tried to get rid of, or at least to reduce the use of parcel taxes because they were deemed to be unfair. Unfortunately, recently, many cash-strapped municipalities who are searching for ways to pay their bills are now resorting back to regressive taxation measures in order to do it. This parcel tax method of increasing revenue also deceives the public into believing that they are holding the line on taxes. Actually, they are not, because these taxes are not factored into the total until after the property tax calculations are done. In actual fact, they represent solid tax increases to the owners. So happy day, parcel taxes are making a comeback. The Regional Parks and Trails Plan was introduced in 2005, and the decision was made to pay for its implementation via the parcel tax. It made the first appearance on our tax notices in 2006. My guess is that implementing a parcel tax as a way to pay for the plan was the best way to phase it in without an uproar. Apparently, back in the day, we were told that it was great value for only $10. The brochure was glossy and impressive. Nanaimo already pays for parks and trails within its own boundaries via property taxation. Keep in mind that this bylaw provides funding for the purchase and improvement of parks and trails outside the boundaries of the city. We all love parks. Vancouver Island is known to be one big park. We pay for national parks in our federal taxes, provincial parks in our provincial taxes, City of Nanaimo parks in our property taxes, and now regional district parks, approximately 22 of them, which stretch from Mount Arrowsmith Trail and Deep Bay in the north to the Nanaimo River in the south. These are not neighborhood parks. Nanaimo is not alone. The municipalities of Parksville, Qualicum, Lanceville, and the 8 electoral areas, A to H, in the regional district also pay for these parks via a parcel tax. That is a whole lot of cash flowing into the cookie jar. One wonders how in the world we survived before 2006. Perhaps each municipality/electoral district actually paid for its own. Now the numbers. I was advised that approximately 37,000 Nanaimo taxpayers are required to pay this tax. I've done some rough calculations based on this number and have found the following. From 2006 to 15, Nanaimo taxpayers contributed approximately $4,144,000 to this fund. If the parcel tax increases are given the green light tonight, we will contribute another $4.5 million to this scheme from 2016 to 2022, not including beyond. Total contributions from 2006 to 2022 from Nanaimo alone would be approximately $8.5 million. Remember, this money is being used to finance capital costs for regional parks and trails. In addition, there is another levy on your tax notice that simply says Regional District Parks. Apparently, the money is paid as per the invoice from the RDN. And calculations based on the same number of parcels from 2006 to 2015 indicate that the taxpayers of Nanaimo have contributed approximately $2,728,000 to that levy, which also continues to increase. I'm not clear what that is used for, but perhaps it is used to pay administrative costs, which cannot legally be paid for via the parcel tax scheme. Personally, I do not feel obliged to pay for parks and trails all over the regional district. I feel that considering the economy in our area, we could leave this money in the pockets of the taxpayers who could put it to much better use. Yes, we all love parks, but there is a limit to what we can afford to pay. Excuse me. I would like to see this parcel tax scheme come to an immediate and abrupt end, but as we all know, once in motion, these money-making schemes never end. I've had a lot of difficulty getting this information together, and it has taken me quite a long time to get my head around it. I'm an amateur. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I would love to be totally and entirely wrong about the numbers. During one of my investigative phone calls, I asked questions regarding why I should pay for these parks miles and miles away from my own neighborhood. I was told that tourists are always looking for new facilities and amenities. The community charter does not mention tourists. It mentions benefits to the parcel owner. I would respectfully suggest that this whole scheme was cooked up to benefit not mainly the taxpayers, but to attract and satisfy tourists and stimulate economic development in the area. We all know how these schemes work out. Of note is at an RDN board meeting held in March, a board member stated that after the proposed increases to the parcel tax, approximately $700,000 would be added to Nanaimo's tax bill and about $70,000 to Qualicum Beach. Keep in mind that 8 electoral districts, in addition to the 4 municipalities, are also contributing to this plan and are being asked to pay increases as well. This is a runaway train, or should I say, a runaway gravy train. You may argue that this is a worthy plan, but many would disagree, as I do. We cannot afford everything when we cannot manage what we already have. Remember the core review? I would guess that this plan would never have seen the light of day if it were done any other way than via this tax. Remember the, oh, it is a good value, only $10 per parcel. Amen. An easy sell, but crunch the numbers and see who loses. Plea to the taxpayers, to the public who may be listening, raise the alarm and educate your friends and relatives about parcel taxes. Excuse me. Ask questions. Beware. Municipal councils all across BC are introducing infrastructure levies which give taxpayers the impression that they are holding the line on property taxes. Do a search on Surrey, Lake Country, Cranbrook, West Vancouver, and read about what is happening. It will make you very angry. Push back, demand that the cost savings be found within City Hall and that money be reprioritized to pay for basic bread and butter issues until we get our spending habits in order. We cannot continue to pay for new and never-ending fancy plans full of promises with no accountability to the public and no end in sight.
Thank you. Don't go away. We've got questions for you. Councillor Kipp.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Very thought out. You've done some amazing digging to get the information. I hope you're aware that over the next 5 years, our cost to the city at the RDN is going up some 40%. It's going from 11 million to 17 or 18 million over the next couple of years in a few departments. So it's 40% increase over 5 years. Somewhat not acceptable to me. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Denise. Always well thought. And if I could please ask for a copy of that presentation, if you wouldn't have any objection. And I'm not sure, I don't have any reason to dispute or debate any of the information that you've presented. And when you do take these small sums and you start to collate their grand totals over 5 or 10 years. And I feel we get caught up in this a lot. Well, it's not very much. It's in the budget. It's only a small percentage of our budget. And then before you actually know it, whether we're receiving or spending, those amounts in a decade go through the roof. And so you've raised some important statistics here that the $11.25 to $11.5 million for this regional parks and trails parcel tax, and $8.5 million over the since 2006, and an additional 2.75. The only comment that I would make is that, and I'm not sure how this may or may not relate, is that areas from outside of Nanaimo, they do contribute to some of our internal operations as well, that being the Port Theatre and that being some other things. So am I suggesting that there's a trade-off there? Not necessarily, but sometimes we pay for things that we don't, or other people are helping to pay for things that we don't always put into the equation. That said, this is a pretty staggering number, and $10 doesn't seem like a lot. And now it's going to be 22 before you know it, and it'll be $10 million plus before you know it. And where does that money go? I think that's, what does it get spent on? What are we buying? What are we fixing? Where does it go? And is it meeting its intended purpose for its intent for why we're collecting it in the first place? So I think you're looking for accountability of where that money goes once we've collected it. Is that fair to say? Thank you.
It's astounding to me.
Thanks.
Councillor Fuller.
Thanks, Denise. Very informative presentation. I don't sit on the RDN, so I wasn't aware of a lot of this until you brought it up. Now, did I hear you right when you were talking in your presentation that we're actually getting taxed twice for RDN parks and trails?
Well, I looked into this one, and it was really difficult. I talked to people all over, and nobody seems to have the full picture. Everybody has little pieces of it. And so at the end of the day, when I picked up my tax notices, I have two. We've lived in our house for 50 years, so I could look back and check on that. And we have a property at Horn Lake, which we also pay parcel taxes for the same reason. And the Nanaimo one has another levy that's called just plain and simple Nanaimo Region Parks or something like that. That's on top of the parcel tax. It's a smaller amount, but it escalates. And when I asked one of the girls on the phone about it, she said, I assume that's for administration. So I don't know what it's for. When I looked on the city's website, it just says, as per the regional district's invoice. So I don't know what the invoice is for. I'm exhausted because there's no information reports anywhere. When I look back, the Parks and Trails plan was a glossy booklet. It's over 100 pages. It's out of date. I don't have a copy of it, and there doesn't seem to be a new one in existence for the next 10 years, so I don't know what they're basing their predictions on. It's a really hard topic to try and get your head around because it sounds simple, but it's not.
It's interesting, then we pay a tax for the parks and we pay a levy for the administration of the parks. That's an interesting way
Because
of
the
doing
community
it.
charter won't allow the administrative costs to come out of the parcel tax money.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, the very informative, very informative. I don't think I'm going to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Pratt.
Thank you for your presentation. I did find it very interesting. Those are big numbers that you're quoting. Big numbers seem to be the order of the day. It does cost a lot more than it ever used to cost, and people's expectations become higher and higher all the time in terms of parks, recreation, all of the things that happen. In terms of tourism, I can't honestly say I have an issue with that, only because tourism brings in money to our community as well. So providing parks and trails for tourism is a part of the goal of creating a community. But, yes, did you want to comment on that?
Charter, though, says that the reason that the parcel tax is in existence is to give the property owner a benefit.
Mhm.
They're supposed to have the opportunity to have a
Mhm.
benefit.
Mhm.
It doesn't say anything about tourists. If tourism is a spin-off, that's fine. But the argument that it was about tourism should not be number one.
So that probably was just a red
A slip
herring
of
of
the tongue.
sorts. But we all do benefit from the parks, and we all benefit from the trails, and some of us don't use them, and some of us do. And we are a community. We pay for everything.
But how far do we want to extend it?
And
that's the point.
that is the question. And a lot of people would disagree with you, and then there are a lot of people that would agree with you. And that's all part of being a community, I think. I really appreciated all the work that you've gone to look at this. I would love to be able to now translate that into what does that look like? What exactly is that paying for?
I would love that too.
Yeah, because, and I'm not sure how we do that, but I think it is possible. I think it's possible to do it. It would take talking to financial people at the RDN to find out exactly, the trail of where all of that goes to.
I think we could use a plan. The other plan is out of date now. And we're into 2016 and we're now being asked for more money with no plan.
I really appreciate all the work you did go to. Thank you.
Councillor Fuller.
Perhaps we could create another levy in order to get that information in a timely manner. Yeah, it's bizarre.
I see no... Councillor Bestwick.
It's going to receive the delegation, and then if I might ask a question, please.
Okay. Motion to receive the delegation, seconded by Councillor Brennan. Call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, ma'am. Go ahead.
Thank you. A question to our city manager or Mr. Mima. 10B is the Regional Parks and Trails Parcel Tax Bylaw 2016, number 7228, to provide authorization to collect a parcel tax. And then in our report on page 82, if you will, it indicates the parcel tax imposed under Section 2 of this bylaw shall be noted as below. And then it goes from 2016 to 2022 and subsequent years at $20. Is it able to be amended for 2016 only, and then conduct a review of 17 to 22, or so that we can discern some of the answers to some of the questions?
Through the chair, you are kind of like in a very difficult position, because what's in front of you is something that you voted for at the regional district. We are simply doing paperwork at this level that allows us to include these numbers in our property tax calculation and requisition process. So the discussion on the values, the accountability that goes around with this parcel tax can best be answered at the RDN table. And your hands are kind of like tied.
Thank you. With all due respect, so my question is, can we approve the parcel tax for 2016, although we have been part of a board that has approved the parcel tax until 2022, conditional, upon information as requested? And I do know that the mayor of Qualicum did bring up that we need to do a review at the RDN, but that's not happening until later in 2016. So, which involves this topic. So, we're stuck for 2016, but do we have to be making commitments that we can't as a council at the board table, amend in 2017 when we're doing the 5-year financial plan out there? Because can we not?
Theoretically, you can. It has implications. You can say we're dealing with 2016. We'll have to discuss this when we do the next financial plan. But I would rather probably have some legal direction, because it kind of like stops the process at some level. So at this point, I'm not too clear whether if we did it kind of like just this year, what does that mean from a legal perspective for RDN?
So I'm asking for help, because I don't know how to do it. But I'm asking for help to find out how we may be able to either extract the information that we need, because perhaps we didn't have that information that we needed at the board table as a membership to make a decision. Number two is if we can restrain this for 1 year until such time as we come back for 2017, if we can. If we can't, if the legal opinion says, too bad, so sad, you guys are out of luck, you should have figured that out before you voted at the RDN table, then it is what it is. But I think it's important that we try to see what we can accomplish here if the council is so willing. I think that it's important.
Through the chair, I'm only bringing my property tax bylaw next week, next Monday. So you could actually table this so this comes back with more information and we can do the research as to what the implications would look like.
Thank you. So that said, I would like to table this until such time as we have more information that you're going to bring back with your property tax information for us, and a legal opinion on how we might be able to address this at the RDN table.
Okay, defer until next week.
Thank you. That's
Okay.
BNC.
Pardon?
I'm guessing that's going to be BNC.
Yeah, BNC. Okay. So, motion to refer. Defer. Okay, there you go. Fine, Danny.
Then now we just have to call the question. Oh.
You may not need to be on the docket until next week.
If we approve it, let's do it right now.
Okay.
Should we hear him?
So
It's 2
we
minutes
need
to
we need a motion to go beyond 11. Can we have a motion to go beyond 11?
Well, can we deal with the motion that's on the table right now first? Please?
Well, we have to have a motion to go beyond 11.
Well, it's 10.
I've got 59.
Okay, well, I'm not going to dance on the head of a pin for what time it is. So if we need a motion to go past 11, then I'll make the motion to go past 11 in order to get this. So there's a
Seconded.
motion to go past 11. Any seconder?
Councillor Yoakum, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
No,
All right.
so we have a motion now that's on the floor to defer this to B and C until Mr. Mima comes back with the parcel tax information in a week's time.
So that's correct. Is next week not committee of the whole?
For finance purposes.
Great, thank you. So we can look after the bylaw at that time.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay.
There's a motion and a seconder.
Yep. Councillor Brennan.
Just on a point of the way that we do our business is we have the delegations before we make the motion, so we jumped the gun a little bit here. We had the first delegation and then we allowed a motion. So I would just request that Councillor Bestwick hold his motion to refer in abeyance until Mr. McGrath has an opportunity to speak as he's on the agenda.
I have no problem doing that, but I would like clarification on whether or not we have to do that, because we can make a referral at any point in time on any topic, on any discussion, at any point in the discussion.
You just did that earlier this evening.
So if if this must take place at 11 o'clock,
I'll be happy to
tonight.
come back next week if you want.
Well, that's your call. I'm not going to demand that you do it. We said that we'd go past 11.
I'll do what I can to get you all out of the witching hour, so.
Thank you.
I'll be happy to come back.
Thank you.
At 7 a.m.
Thank you. All right.
And then so we just need to vote now.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
I move the correspondence, 11A.
I'll have a pizza.
Okay. 11A, move the correspondence. Seconder? Councillor Pratt, thank you. Moved and seconded to receive the correspondence. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Any business arising from correspondence?
Yes, I'm just wondering if staff could provide us with information requesting that the city become a national champion of the Trans-Canada Trail program, what a next step is, and if you've investigated this request and this ask, and if it makes sense for us to participate.
Your Worship, it does. The recommendation from Richard Harding is for the city to declare that it is a champion of this trail, and the city has been for a number of years, and we have signage on it, so I guess perhaps a letter from mayor and council reconfirming that it is a champion of this.
Does this require a motion, or can we just anticipate as a consensus that we'll proceed with that?
A motion?
I so move that the city... Do you want to do it?
No, I'll second it.
Oh, that the city become a national champion of the Trans-Canada Trail program, and that the mayor and the corporate officer be asked to proceed with a letter of same.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. I don't see any further discussion. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, notice of motion.
I think that Councillor Hong and myself have one each. Do you want me to go first, Jared? One that council, this is a notice of motion, that council approve and allocate up to $1,000 for each member of council for travel, hospitality, and conference activities directly related to the city business and the office of a council member. 2, that council direct that council members must deliver a report on their activities to council as soon as reasonably practicable and upon return. And 3, that council approve and allocate up to $3,000 for FCM, $2,500 for UBCM, and $1,000 for AVICC for each approved member of council to attend these conferences. And if there's that's just a notice. Thanks.
It's just a notice.
Just a notice, no second.
Okay. Are there any other notices of motion? Councillor Hong.
Thank you. I'd like to make a notice motion that staff have a report for us with regards to a youth poet laureate. Thank you.
So are you moving a motion or?
No, it's a notice of motion. We're going to come together.
Thank you. Come at the next meeting. Thank you. Thank you. No other business? Question period. Agenda items only. Motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.